you might have a question in your mind. Hey, dude, what exactly qualifies you to talk about legal descriptions? Well, let me take you back to a summer day in 1976. I can remember the day specifically, June 7th. That was the day I went to work for a local land surveying firm known as H.A. Simon Associates in Tomo, Wisconsin. And that was where I got my start as a land surveyor as an assistant. I was paid the sum of I was paid $2.50 an hour, which was a big bonus to me because the minimum wage at the time was $2.35 an hour. So I was making 15 cents more than a lot of my fellow sophomores in high school. So, but that first summer, I fell in love with the profession. I loved working outdoors and being challenged physically and mentally. Surveying utilizes components of many other professions. You get to be a historian. You get to do records research. You can look back at some of these old notes that were handwritten with ink and quill pens. I love that part of the job. And you were literally, when you look back at that, you were attempting to shake hands with the past. You got to be a mathematician. You got to do calculating dimensions and areas. As a cartographer, I got to use my artistic abilities. As a lumberjack, they turned me loose with this big giant knife called a machete. And they also let me use a chainsaw on occasion after some proper training. I got to be an archaeologist, which was a lot of fun too. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun for a lot of people to dig in the earth, but surveyors dig for old survey markers. We find some really cool stuff. We find stones with crosses on them. We find grader blades. We find buggy axles, anything that they might have set back years and years ago. Surveying challenged me to consider how to get the job done right. As a moderator, I love to help people come to an agreement when there's a conflict. And of course, as an interpreter and a writer, that's where the legal descriptions come in. So when I got done with high school, I attended Nicolay Area Technical College in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. The campus is built on the shores of beautiful Lake Julia. And can't say enough good about the education I got there and the people I got to share experiences with up there. Rhinelander will always have a special place in my heart. And so when I got when I graduated with my associate's degree, I came back to Toma and I worked for the very same land surveying company that took a chance on me as summer help. And for the next 28 and a half years, I worked in private practice survey work. Now, majority of that work took place in Monroe County, but also some of the adjoining counties like Jackson, Juneau, Vernon, and La Crosse counties. We did property surveys, topographic surveys, elevation surveys, and ALTA surveys, American Land Title Association surveys. And a good share of my work had to do with either reading or writing legal descriptions. Another red letter day for me occurred on December 1st of 2008. That was the day I was hired as the county surveyor for La Crosse County. I had some experience in Juneau County serving as the part-time county surveyor there. But I applied for the job and I was blessed to be able to get it. I'm very happy to work for La Crosse County and I can't say enough good about what a great employer La Crosse County is. And the bottom line, I'm sharing all of this with you because I want you to know first and foremost, I absolutely positively love my job. So for the past 45 years, I've been involved in either reading legal descriptions, interpreting legal descriptions, and writing legal descriptions. And one of the more challenging aspects of my job is interpreting legal descriptions and deeds. As Sandy said in my intro, I have the honor of, for the past 3 years of contributing to teaching legal descriptions class for the Wisconsin Land Title Association. That being said, I know I'm still learning, and I know that everything that I know, you might have a different take. I'm coming at it from a land surveying perspective, but you may have a different take on it. And I'm sure that there are people out there, and I don't have all the answers. So as Sandy said, you are certainly welcome to ask questions as we go along. That's a picture of our moderator today. Sandy, I wanted to highlight you because sometimes the video gets kind of grainy. So I wanted them to see you and thank you and very much appreciate the fact that you're doing the moderating today. So Sandy's going to keep an eye on the chat box for us. If you are more comfortable with that avenue for asking questions, why certainly by all means, please do come in through the chat box.
Well, you sure are sneaky.
I wasn't sneaky at all. That's where I found your bio. So for your convenience, now that all being said, for your convenience, many of your questions have already been included in this workshop. So as I developed this workshop, I thought about questions you might ask along the way. So I hope you don't mind that I put a few of your questions in. Like this one. So Brian, what's on the agenda for today? Well, this is what our agenda looks like. We're going to look at the purpose of legal descriptions, who writes legal descriptions, and we're going to look at the types of legal descriptions. And I realize that there are more than three main components, but we're going to focus on these three. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the rectangular survey system or the public land survey system. We're also going to talk about recorded subdivisions. We're going to talk about meets and bounds descriptions, and they've got some interesting elements there as far as curves and meander lines. We're just going to touch on that a little bit. And then we're going to map out a few legal descriptions, and we're going to take a look at some problems and challenges. So that you know it's not going to go on your permanent record. We are going to have a quiz here, but it's not going to go on your permanent record. I'm hoping that you'll be able to answer some questions to help kind of back up what you've learned today and hopefully help you take away some things. And then finally, I'm going to do something a little bit that tugs at the heartstrings and talk to you about a little different kind of description. So we'll start off today by talking about the purpose of legal descriptions. Why do we write those things? Why do they exist? So why are legal descriptions written? To provide a clear, orderly, and legal way of identifying boundaries of a parcel of land. So in other words, to keep it real simple, if I want to own a piece of land, I need to identify the perimeter of what I'm buying. So we want to go through a process, and that process needs to be orderly and legal. So we want to do that to protect landowner rights. That's one of the most cherished aspects of living in a free society is our ability to own land. That's why many of our ancestors came here many years ago. So that orderly and legal has to do with official documentation. And typically when land changes hands, that takes the shape of a warranty deed. And a warranty deed has several components to it. It has an agreement between a grantor, the seller, and a grantee, the buyer, for a specified piece of property, and that's where the legal description comes in. There's compensation involved. We're going to see dates on the document. We're going to have notarized signatures because we want to know that we've got the right people signing in the right lines in the right places. And then finally, who drafted the document? That's an important aspect to know who drafted that. And then it goes to the Friendly Register of Deeds office. That makes it orderly and legal. As a matter of fact, it makes it public record. The Register of Deeds office and their staff are responsible for housing and protecting those legal documents. Having the legal documents here makes them public record so that the world is aware of that ownership. And if you go to the Wisconsin Register of Deeds Association, they've got an awesome website, and they've got some very specific language as it comes to legal descriptions, statutory legal descriptions, and they talk about meets and bounds description. And at a minimum, that legal description has to talk about the quarter section. If it's on a plat or a subdivision, it has to, at a minimum, identify the lot, outlot, and block number if it applies. Certified survey maps very much the same way. A lot and an outlot number, a map number, volume and page if assigned, and a document number where the map is recorded. They also, of course, handle condominiums and assessors plats. So they are really the ones that house those really, really important documents, and they're where we go to get copies of them. So we have orderly and clear, but we have orderly and legal, but what about clear? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where things get kind of interesting. Sometimes legal descriptions aren't always clear. They're written by underqualified and unqualified individuals. Here's another question. Hey, Brian, who writes legal descriptions? Well, I'm glad you asked. Who writes those legal descriptions? Well, they take the form of many people, and first and foremost, oftentimes it turns out to be a landowner. Sometimes dad wants to sell his son a couple of acres so that he can build a house on it. It might be somebody that's got a nice large piece of property and they want to sell off something for recreation. They would write a legal description, and that would get typed down to a deed form, and that would get recorded. Title people might get involved in writing legal descriptions, might be loan officers. Utility companies are good for writing legal descriptions. Attorneys, realtors, government agencies, and land surveyors. And I've had the opportunity to view legal descriptions from many sources. Many are absolutely fine, while others leave much to be desired. And I hate to say it, but even legal descriptions written by land surveyors can have flaws. a lot of land surveyors from back in the day, and I'm thinking back in the 40s and 50s, came from an engineering background. And so while they knew how to measure, they weren't necessarily good at verbalizing a legal description. So we talk about diverse abilities, lots of people with a lot of different backgrounds and communication abilities. So diverse is defined as the quality or state of being composed of many different elements or types. Different knowledge and different skill levels creates different qualities of descriptions. So today I want to talk to you about the three basic categories of legal descriptions. And please understand, if you're in Green Bay or you're down in Prairie du Chien, you've got French long lots, and I think of other areas that might not be involved with these three basic ones. But today we're really going to focus our energy on these three. So we're going to talk about the rectangular survey system, subdivisions, that's lots and blocks, and then of course meets and bounds descriptions. So the rectangular survey system comes from the Land Ordinance of 1785. It was set up as a standardized system whereby settlers could purchase title to farmland in the undeveloped West. It was championed by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson had a vision for America. He saw America as a nation of yeoman farmers, each of whom would own 160 acres of land. A little more specifically, the Land Ordinance of 1785 was adopted by the United States Congress of the Confederation on May 20th of 1785. It set up a standardized system whereby settlers could purchase title to farmland in the undeveloped West. Congress at the time did not have the power to raise revenue by direct taxation, so sales provided an important revenue stream. The ordinance set up a survey system that eventually covered over 3/4 of the area of the continental United States. So if you can imagine, this is what everything in red, those are all those little 6 by 6 mile townships all across the United States. They had a pretty significant impact. So the public land survey system can be broken down into two main components. First, you had townships, which are roughly gridded 6 by 6 mile squares. And then each one of those 6 by 6 mile squares was broken down into 36 sections of 1 mile square each. In Wisconsin, we're fortunate that we have one baseline and we have one meridian line that cuts through the state. So if you can picture the illustration here, that's the state line. That's the state line between Wisconsin and Illinois. And here's the fourth principal meridian as it cuts through Wisconsin. So this is a little different, better look at it. You can see the illustration on the left talking about Wisconsin in general, where the fourth principal meridian comes in, and you can see the state of Illinois. The illustration on the right talks about, there's the fourth principal meridian. You can see the lavender part on the east side and the more purple area on the left side of the fourth principal meridian. So any townships over on the left side would be township something north, range something west, whereas the other side would be town something north, range something east. So it's an important designation to tell where that fourth principal meridian is. Now, if you work in Monroe County like I did, and I caught myself a couple of times, the fourth principal meridian actually cuts through our county. So we literally have the town of Lincoln, if you look toward the top of the screen, to the township 19 north, range 1 west, and the town of Scott, town 19 north, range 1 east. So you had to be kind of careful, and especially when you were looking at the old original notes, you had to make sure that you were in the right township. So this is what those 6 by 6 mile squares looked as they're across the entire state. That's what it looks like. In Wisconsin, the original government survey took place between 1832 when the original point was set, and it concluded in 1866. So it took quite a while. It took about 34 years for that to happen all across the state of Wisconsin. A lot of work went into that. So as those surveyors progressed across Wisconsin, the first government surveyors established the township lines. So if you can picture the outer perimeter of that 6 by 6 mile square, they went along and set section and quarter corners every half mile all around the perimeter of that township. A second group of government surveyors divided townships into 1 by 1 mile squares known as sections. That subdivision started at the southeast corner of the township and progressed west and north. Any error in that township was left along the west and north lines of the township. The corners established by the public land survey system, and I want to really amplify this point because these points are really, really important when it comes to legal descriptions and surveying in general. So they're set at roughly half-mile intervals and not the center of section. So I've got section 16 amplified here. I've got it brought up, and you can see where the corners are. Each one of those corners represents a PLSS corner. And I brought up section 16. And I'm just going to see if you're all still awake. Does anybody know why section 16 is important? Chime in, don't be afraid. I've either put you to sleep or nobody's talking. So section 16 is important because it's the school section. So 16 is a school section. Support for public education in the United States predates the Constitution. Our forefathers thought so much of education that they made sure that a portion of the land that they were subdividing went to help fund public education. So 2 years before the adoption of the United States Constitution of 1787, the Congress of the Confederation provided support for public schooling by establishing the land grants in the Land Ordinance of May 20th of 1785, which granted section 16, 1 square mile of every township to be used for public education. And the specific verbiage says this: there shall be reserved the lot number 16 of every township for the maintenance of public schools within said township. So while you didn't use the entire block, obviously your one-room schoolhouse certainly didn't occupy an entire 1 by 1 mile square. You could actually, the leaders within that township could sell off pieces of section 16 to help them buy school books and pay for things for the upkeep of the school and so forth. Section 16 is kind of critical in this whole public land survey system survey. Again, the original corners of the public land survey system, oddly enough, they were established using wood posts, and that's simply because there was plenty of them around. As they did their surveying and measuring, they were able to cut down a tree and set a post, and they would put a post in the ground as they measured along, put a post in the ground. They also utilized something called bearing trees. They would go out from that post and they would find a nearby tree, and they would blaze that tree, and they would actually scribe into it letters and numbers so that people could be aware, because that wood post isn't going to last forever, and hopefully the trees do. So once that wood post rotted off, the trees many times were still in place, and as long as you had the notes from the original government survey, you could measure off of those trees, one or both trees, and get yourself placed back where the original corner was. You can see some illustrations here. The one in the upper left-hand corner was a brass compass. So they basically used magnetic, and they took into account the variation between true north and magnetic north. There was a way on that compass to make that happen. Down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that's what's called a chain, 66 feet in length. And each one of those little things in between there are called links, L-I-N-K-S. And so they measured across America at 66 feet at a time. And so when they took that dimension to the bearing tree, oftentimes that dimension from the corner post to the tree was in links. So you had to do a little multiplication. Each one of those links is worth 0.66 feet. In this motley looking crew, I'm not sure, I snagged this off the internet. I'm not sure this is an original government survey crew, but just to give you a sense of the time and the terrain and things that they had to deal with. So you can look at this illustration. You can see that the blue ones represent section corners. That's pretty obvious. I always wondered why they were called quarter corners. I never understood those ones in the middle. Why didn't they call them middle corners or something like that? Well, that has to do with, if you were to connect opposite quarter corners, you basically quarter the section. So that's why it's called a quarter corner, because now you quarter that section. And so in this example, section 22, you've got the northwest quarter, northeast quarter, southeast quarter, and southwest quarter, just to kind of give you a sense of why those are called quarter corners. Here again is another illustration of that post, and they would have a direction to each one of those bearing trees. In this case, there are 4 of them. As you can see that one is 13, the nearest one is 13 links away, the farthest one is 67 links away. But they would blaze those trees. So in other words, when I say blaze the tree, they would cut the bark back to get down to the wood layer. They cut through the cambium layer and get right down to the wood layer. And you could literally scribe those letters and numbers in there. In this example, if you look at the one to the southwest, on the left-hand side of the screen, it says Township 4 South, Range 5 East, Section 35, and in the lower blaze it says BT, which stands for bearing tree. The original government notes, survey crews worked as was documented in field notes. The original notebooks are in the custody of the Wisconsin Board of Commissioners of Public Lands. Microfilmed copies are held at the State Historical Society. And these original government notes tell a lot. It's a little bit shorthand, but they take the measurements. They talk about what corners were established, what they put in. They talk about the bearing trees. And not only that, they talk about the terrain. What was the land like? What was the soil like? And what was the timber like? So taking you back to Monroe County, I want to take you on a walk with the original government surveyors just to give you a sense of what that was like. Anybody been to the Warren's Cranberry Festival? Please, somebody say yes. The Warren's Cranberry Festival takes place every September. It's the last full weekend in September. There's 100 farmers market booths, 350 antique and flea market vendors, 800 arts and crafts vendors. That little community puts through about, and it's probably not more than 300 or 400 people. On a normal day, they put through about 140,000 visitors as they attend. So what I want to share with you today is this little section right here. It's the line between the township of LaGrange and the town of Lincoln. And these are the original government notes from December 6th of 1845. And so you can kind of see it's kind of shorthand, so I'm going to walk with you through this. So they're working west along the south boundary of Section 32. So they're walking along, they're moving along, and they get to a point that is 12.86 chains. So 12.86 times 66 in our nomenclature would be 848.76 feet. That's where they encountered a black oak, 12 inches in diameter. That's called a line tree. That tree was right on the line, and rather than take the time to cut the tree down, they simply hacked the side of it to mark it and got on the other side of it and continued on. But it is an important and valuable piece of information as far as putting that corner back in the ground. They then got the 40 chains. 40 times 66 is 2,640 feet. They set a post, a wood post for the quarter corner. They have a pine, 8 inches in diameter, north, 37 degrees east, 19 links. 19 links taken times 0.66 is 12.54 feet. They continued on. From that quarter corner, they continued on, and at 47 chains, they left dry land and entered an alder swamp that basically headed north and south. So at 1,302 feet, they encountered that swamp, and so they made a note of it, and they continued on, and they slogged through the swamp. They got to 80 chains. 80 chains is 5,280 feet, which is a mile, and they set a post for the corner of Section 31 and 32. And that's where they set the post, and they have two bearing trees there. A red oak, 12 inches in diameter, north 29 degrees west, 14 links. 14 links is about 9.24 feet. And they found an aspen, 8-inch, north 70 degrees east, 12 links away. That's about 7.92 feet. So those two bearing trees were really close. The other thing that they did was they assessed the land. So you can see that they've got some notation here that the land east of the swamp is the same as the east mile. West of mile, alder, tamarack, maple, and aspen swamp. Anybody have any idea why this is important? Swamp is a great place to grow cranberries. And so maybe people looked at this and thought, hey, that'd be a great place to grow cranberries. So this is an illustration of what those original government notes look like. They started at the corner on the right-hand side of the sheet at the section corner. They went along 848.76 feet, and that's where the 12-inch line tree is. They continued on and set the quarter corner. You can see they went another 462 feet and that's where they entered the swamp. It continued on the total distance of 5,280 feet at the section corner, just to kind of give you a sense of what those notes are telling us. Not only did they keep a running notes, but they also drew a plat map, and this is kind of gives you a little illustration. The south line of section 32 between the letters R and S, that's where they went. So in an ideal world, 1 mile is going to equal 5,280 feet. A half-mile distance is going to be 2640. A quarter mile is going to be 1320. A section area is going to contain exactly 640 acres, and a 40, believe it or not, is going to contain exactly 40 acres. Well, that's the intention. But you have to remember a couple of things when it comes to the intention. We're working on a globe. So if you can picture a globe, you can picture those meridian lines converging as they get farther north. The other thing you have to consider, instead of it being this nice square, is that you're working with equipment and times that challenge people. You had some pretty archaic equipment when you think about it. When you're out there with a magnetic compass and a chain that's 66 feet long. And so that while the intention looks very much like this, the reality looks more like this. It's not a perfect square. It's not perfect simply because of human error and just the fact that we live on a round sphere. So again, while you might think of a plat book and everything looks nice and beautiful, hunky-dory, I didn't know if it would translate hunky-dory down in the bottom, but it did. Everything looks great on this plat sheet, but when you look at something like this, you come to realize that it's not a perfect world out there. This happens to be a plat book sheet from Price County. Iron ore deposits likely impacted the compass direction on this. So just to give you a sense, as you look at this, you can see that Section 8 is supposed to have 640 acres, and you look at Section 11 is supposed to have 640 acres. And I don't think that's true. That looks a little different to me. So when the reality looks like this, when a surveyor is required to go out and do a survey within a section, we connect opposite quarter corners to establish what's called the center of section. That's that first red dot. Then we're required by law to split each one of those lines and find the midpoint of each sideline of that quarter section. And then we connect opposite midpoints. And that's how we determine the interior lines of a section. And so where those lines intersect would be another 40 corner location. And so that's, while that's, you would think that that 40 acre tract of land would contain exactly 40 acres and be exactly square. That's why it's not. As a matter of fact, I can tell you after 45 years of surveying, being involved in land surveying, I have yet to see a 40 that actually contains exactly 40 acres. Just to give you a couple of examples, these are just some real simple examples from La Crosse County. Section 28, Township 15 North, Range 5 West, is the town of Washington. If you look at this plat book sheet, everything looks like it adds up. You've got an owner that owns 240 acres, plus another owner that owns 240 acres, and one more owner that owns 160 acres. If you add those all up, you've got exactly 640 acres, because that's what the original government survey says. All is right with the world, or is it? Again, this is section 28. On the right, you can see an illustration of how those section and quarter corners were reestablished. Many times we didn't find those original government corners, and so we had to piece things back together, but things got really out of hand. After the PLSS corners were reestablished, the section areas calculated far different than that was reported on the original government survey. And I'd like to have, some solid reason for why everything is so much larger here. But when you start looking at those areas, you can see the east line of the northeast quarter of section 28. That measures 2,713 feet, which is way over the 2,640 feet. My sense is perhaps they lost count of the chains. Can you imagine measuring 66 feet at a time? And losing track of how far you were, losing your tally might have happened there. And so they might have gone 41 chains instead of 40 chains. I don't know. I don't have a really good answer. But when you look at the acreages in here, and I want to point this one out, Don and Vincent Hunt are being assessed for 160 acres in the northeast quarter, but in reality, they actually enjoy 165.26 acres of land. So that's quite a difference. Here's another one. This is from, yes.
So Brian,
Yep.
So like in our county at some point, it's been a few years, quite a few years ago now, that one with the better GIS mapping that we have today, at some point they switched over, and all of those parcels that there was discrepancies, a lot of they changed them. They changed them to be assessed the correct acreage now. So that explains, that led to a lot of questions. What happened to my 160 acres? Somebody stole my land. Now, what happened to my land? It's gone. Or the opposite. How come all of a sudden I have more acres now? I didn't buy any more. It just creates a lot of questions that we hear.
Exactly. And here in La Crosse County, we don't actually go out of our way to make those changes, even though we know where those corners are, unless a survey actually comes in on that parcel. We have not taken that bold step to change that simply for that reason, because it does kind of throw up a red flag for people. Like you said, where did all my land go? I had X number of acres and now I've only got this much. But
and that maybe that was the case. Maybe it was because of a survey. I'm not sure if it was across the board.
Yeah.
Because
and you may have done something different in Rock County than we chose to do here. Maybe they went out, and since you've got that information available to you, that qualifies as a survey. And so as they put in those section and quarter corners, you could easily subdivide a section and break them down so that you knew exactly how many acres. And I actually think it's a good thing, because now people are paying taxes on exactly what they own and not what is speculated that they own. So right. Good question. Thank you. Sure. So here's another example, section 34 in the town of Bangor. You can see everything looks like it adds up really nice. Everything in this section, you take the 400 plus the 80 plus the 40 plus the 120, everything adds up to exactly 640 acres. That's a good thing. And all is right with the world again, or is it? Well, you can see that the Kick Trust, it's kind of in the middle there of the section. You can see after we put the section and quarter corners back in the ground, here things came up a lot, fairly short. And so you can see on that northeast quarter, the north line of the northeast quarter only measures 2,596 feet versus the 2,640 that it's supposed to have. Difficult terrain, and the town of Bangor, trust me, has some very difficult terrain. And measuring up and down those hills, a lot of times people, the surveyors came up short with that. We go out there now with our GPS equipment, we're able to shoot it, and we wonder why they had so much trouble. Well, measuring 66 feet at a pop takes a long time, up and downhill, losing count of the tally, things like that. But I guess the thing I would amplify here is that the section and quarter corners, as they were originally established and as we have them reset, they're going to hold no matter what errors might have occurred in that original survey. They're going to hold. We don't go out and start reinventing the wheel. We're going to make them stay right where they are and live with them as they are, because for generations now, that's exactly what's happened. Again, so here you can see the section and quarter corners. And I guess I want to amplify the loud and clear, the public land survey system corners are critical and establish the interior lines of a section. When a surveyor has to go in and establish the interior lines of a section, we use the exterior to locate the interior. So they're vitally important. So that's why we want to protect them. The other key point I want to bring up is the public land survey system corners frequently serve as the point of commencement for many legal descriptions. And you're going to see that a little later on in the presentation. So descriptions of the rectangular survey system can be broken down into three parts, something called aliquot parts, fractional parts, and government lots. Aliquot parts, I didn't quite understand the word myself, so I took a look. It sounds like it's a French word, but in mathematics, it's a quantity that can be divided into another a whole number of times. So in a perfect world, a section of land measures exactly 5,280 feet by 5,280 feet and contains exactly 640 acres. So when you look at this simple breakdown, you've got an example at the top that says the northwest quarter, well, that would contain exactly 160 acres. The next example talks about the west half of the southwest quarter, which would contain 80 acres. The next example talks about the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter. And if I'm going too fast for people, let me know, please do. Just simply raise your hand. So if you can see on this diagram, if you can picture the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter, I think it's pretty simple. It's that piece right there. And you can break it down even more, the north half of the northwest of the southeast. That piece, you can go a little farther and you can break it down into a 10-acre increment that looks like this, the northeast of the southeast. So it'd be that piece right there. So just to kind of give you a sense, the aliquot part is very simple as far as describing it, because you're defining it and you're breaking it down into smaller components. So as we said, a section is 1 square mile, contains 640 acres. You break it down a little farther. I've got one highlighted here, or I guess I've got a bold outline around it. And if there was a legal description of that, that legal description would look something like this. The northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 12, township 17 north, range 5 west, town of Burns, La Crosse County, Wisconsin. That's what that would look like. But as you begin to learn how to interpret legal descriptions, I would invite you to do this. Read it backwards. I would encourage you to take that legal description and break it out as Wisconsin, La Crosse County, the town of Burns, town 17 north, range 5 west, section 12, the northwest quarter, then find the northeast quarter. So I think we're all pretty good at, we're pretty squared away at finding the state of Wisconsin. We got that component taken care of. We can find La Crosse County, Wisconsin with no real problems. But let's locate the town of Burns. There's the town of Burns, that panhandle shaped thing right there. Whoa, dude, I thought you said a township was 6 by 6 miles. Well, there is a distinction between the township, a congressional township, which is in fact 36 by 36 square miles, and a civil or political township that can be either larger or smaller than a congressional township. So we have a lot of that in La Crosse County. It's chopped up pretty good. And just for clarification, we no longer refer to towns like the town of Burns, township of Burns. We call it the town of Burns. That's the official designation. So we've got the town of Burns. That's that southerly portion, the full 6 by 6 mile square, the southerly portion. And so now we've located township 17 north, range 5 west. The next thing we have to do is find section 12 within that grid work. Everybody find section 12? It's not hard, is it? It looks like that. It's that 1 by 1 mile square known as section 12. And we've got the northwest quarter of section 12. So finding that's not really hard. It's that whole 160 acre tract of land. Now we're going to break it down one more step. We're going to go to the northeast quarter. We finally reached the end of our legal description, reading it backwards. And hopefully everybody knows what the northeast of the northwest is. It's that piece right there. So not overly abundantly hard. Fractional parts of a PLSS section. When the original government surveyors subdivided a township, any area that was left in the north and west parts of a township. So if you can picture, this is what it looks like on a government plat sheet. And you can kind of see how the sections look very nice and uniform all across, starting at the southeast corner and working your way north and west. But as you get to the west line and the north line, take a look at that area shaded in yellow. Those are what are called fractionals. That's what was left over. So kind of give you a feeling for what that looks like. Here's an example fractional part of a PLSS section. It's commonly abbreviated as FRAC period or FR period. Here's an example, the fractional northwest of the northwest of section 6. If you can find it, it looks pretty easy to me. You got section 6 in front of you. But it's this piece up here. It's got 45.32 acres of land. It looks like that. Sometimes those fractional portions are less than 40 acres. I've got a couple of examples here. You can see that basically all of the west and north line are less than 40 acres. The one example on the west line shows us 36.66 acres. One example in the northeast of section 5 contains 35.6 acres. So just to give you a sense. And it does go the other way. Sometimes those fractional portions are more than 40 acres. And you can kind of see on this example along the west line, that 40, that fractional 40 contains 44.32 acres of land. And sometimes those fractional portions are so much less that they are fractional halves of a section. So this is just an example when things got really, really short, rather than try and dork around with splitting that into two 40-acre tracts, they just made one 68.6 acre parcel of land. So just to kind of give you, so you might see in a legal description something that says the west half of the fractional west half of the fractional northwest border of section 7. So I've got some examples here, and I hope you're following along. How many acres are in the fractional northeast of the northwest of section 6? I'll give you a second to take a look at that. You've got section 6 there in the upper left-hand corner of the illustration. These are the original government notes, original government sheets, plat sheets. So how many acres are in the northeast of the northwest? Sandy, can you see that? You're muted.
Looks to me like it would be 37.13 plus 35.96 plus 80.
Well, thank you, but we're just talking about the fractional northeast of the northwest. So it's just that one fractional piece. That piece right there. So
Okay.
Okay, you got it. So we're looking at that section as basically 1 by 1 mile square, but it's the fractional portion of it. So now the acreage total that's left in that, because of the surveying that happened coming from the east and south and working their way north, we ended up with this leftover piece of land known as the fractional northeast quarter of the fractional northwest quarter of section 6. And so,
Okay.
Sorry,
I was looking at the whole map as the section.
Gotcha.
I didn't realize you had 4 sections there.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't make that clear. No,
Right.
no, thanks.
It's all there.
Yeah. So I'll give you another shot. How many acres are in the southwest quarter of the fractional southwest of 6?
All right, so we have 6 southwest. That would be 36.96.
Look at you. Nicely done. Thank you.
All right.
So now I've got a really, really challenging question for anybody that wants to answer it. How many acres in the southeast quarter of section 7? It's a really easy question. So, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because just because it's a fractional section doesn't mean portions of that section aren't normal, aren't regular. So in the southeast quarter of section 7, Sandy, how many are there?
Looks like 160.
It's 160, yes. It was a trick question. I was just to let you know that the fractional really has to do with that last quarter mile or so. That's where they threw all the error. Thanks for your help on that. Government lots. Government lot is a part of a section which has been altered by a body of water. You can see in this illustration, you can see the lake is kind of in the middle of, or kind of protruded across the north line of that section. And to be honest, the lake was probably there first. And so when the original government surveyors did their work, they went to the water's edge, set themselves what's called a meander corner. That's the designation MC there. And so they basically meandered the edge of the water. And when they took the information back to Washington, D.C., the people in the office actually made the designation. So you can see in the upper right-hand corner of this illustration, that's government lot 1. Just to the left of it, the 11.4 acre parcel of land, that's government lot 2. And then over to the left of that, finally, it's 21.85 acre parcel of land is government lot 3. I hope that's clear for everybody. Give you another illustration. This is what it looked like. They got into, they encountered a lake, so they set a meander corner, and you can see they numbered them. I'm still trying to figure out this illustration, why they went 1 and 2, and then they started on the east side with 3 and went back to 4. It would seem logical to do it sequentially, but they chose to do it this way. So just to make you aware that government lots are altered by a body of water typically. The government lot, which has been altered by a body of water, this is an illustration on the original government plat sheet. You can see that we've got 8 government lots shown on here. They're in the red ink. This, what you're looking at is 1 square mile. This is section 34. And so again, that government lot is frequently abbreviated as G.L or gov lot. And so in this example, we've got government lot 6 of section 34 of township 17 north, range 6 west, town of Hamilton, La Crosse County, Wisconsin. Can everybody kind of see where that is? And I'll just shade it in here for you so you get a sense of where it is. Hopefully you can see where government lot 6 is on this illustration. It's that piece of land right there. So that's what government lot 6 looks like. So it has 50.16 acres of land in it. Or it did at that point in time. Of course, the river did move in this case, so that number really isn't true anymore based on where the water is now.
Brian, we got a question in the chat.
Yep.
How is a body of water defined?
Navigable. And so when the original surveyors, they didn't take every little creek and tributary, and they had protocols in place for determining what was meanderable and what wasn't. And I wish I had that verbiage in front of me right now, but it had to be fairly significant. It wasn't, they didn't, you know, if it was a swamp, they didn't meander it. But if it was a significant, in this instance right here, it was the La Crosse River. That's, you know, 30, 40 feet wide. That's pretty significant. And so they needed to do the meandering of that on both sides. I hope I've answered the question, but it really had to be a significant body of water before they actually went to the bother of meandering it. They did take note though, when they crossed a creek, they noted it, what direction it was flowing and things like that. So,
Great question, Tony. Thank you.
yes, thanks. Hey, Brian, I heard you got schooled by a real property lister a while back. She says there's a place in Juneau County that has a PLSS sections with government lots, even though they don't have water bodies. Is that true? Oh, yes, it is true. I'm sorry to say I got caught. And you would think I would know it because I was a county surveyor in Juneau County for a while, and I'd forgotten all about this. So I've got this illustration. This again is the original government plat sheet, and you can see this is what a typical PLSS section looks like. It's basically 1 by 1 mile square. Take a look at this piece up here. That's the closing section on the north end of the township of Kingston. And you can see that it's half again as long as a normal section. And this is a little closer look. You can see the entire north tier of this township and other townships too have an extra basically half mile added to them. So just to kind of give you a sense, and I know the red doesn't show up here, so I'm going to have these numbers come in here so you can see. Those are all government lots that aren't necessarily impacted by a body of water. And I'll get into why this anomaly took place, but you can see I'm numbering the lots here for you. So there are literally 16 government lots on the north end of this township. Probably because they didn't know how to describe it as the northeast of the northerly tier. I think it just got to be easier just to number them. So to give you a reason why, because I got really curious and I was blessed to go to a presentation by Les Van Horn. He used to be the county surveyor in Brown County, and I asked him, I said, why did that happen? And he said that when they did the original government survey, they wanted to survey first where people were settling and where they were moving in. Well, logically, that makes sense for that to happen along the east coast where Lake Michigan is and Green Bay is. And so what they did, they started at the initial point and established the fourth principal meridian, but then they said, stop, we don't need to be surveying land out in the middle. Let's start on the eastern border of Wisconsin and work our way west. And so what they did is they figured out how far north they were and they shot a line across. And so I think it's really kind of wonderful that they only were off a half a mile. I could have seen that missing by a mile or more. And so that's how those odd government lots came to be. And even after 45 years, I'm still learning. Oh, we got a question here. Okay, I think we've got it, but can you just give us a quick overview of the rectangular land descriptions? I'd be happy to. First, we've got aliquot parts, typically squares and equal parts. We've got fractional parts, the leftover squares along the north and west edges of a township. And then government lots are pieces of a section altered by a body of water and a few townships in Juneau County. Okay, I've got it, thanks. You're welcome. Moving on then to recorded subdivisions. Subdivision plat, this has to do with subdivision plats and certified survey maps. And so you'll often see this when it comes to development where you live. A developer sees a piece of property that he thinks would make nice home locations for people, and so a developer will come in and they'll develop a piece of property. Recorded plats are typically come in two forms. Number one, a subdivision plat, typically more than 4 parcels. I call that a major subdivision. And a certified survey map, typically 4 parcels or less. I call that a minor subdivision. So a recorded plat. A recorded plat is typically drawn on a 22 by 30 inch piece of paper, and that tells you how old I am because I know now that we can e-file a lot of this stuff, but I'm an old school guy, so I still look at them as 22 by 30 inch pieces of paper. They, again, our friends at the Register of Deeds office take care of those, and they can be used to dedicate streets and parks and so on. Just a really valuable tool for dividing land. Recorded plat, there are key elements found on a subdivision plat. You'll always want to look for a north arrow, a graphic scale, a legend, and a seal and signature and a date. So on this particular instance, you can see this was done by Richard Berg from Holman, Wisconsin. He did this plat back in 2011, and you can see the graphic scale there, the north arrow, and down in the legend, you can see those symbols. Those symbols represent what monuments are set at each corner out there. The 2.375 inch monuments, the larger ones, are set at the plat corners and usually at the ends of beginnings and ends of curves. You can see the other ones, and he's got down at the bottom, it says all other lot corners set 1 and 3.15 inch by 30 inch iron pipe, 1.68 pounds per lineal foot at all of the lot corners. So each one of the lots within this subdivision has a 1 inch iron pipe marking the corner location. One key element that I think is really nice when it comes to figuring out exactly where is this subdivision, there's a location sketch usually located. As a matter of fact, it's a requirement of a subdivision plat. And you can kind of see he's got it cross-hatched on here. This is the northeast quarter of section 6. And you can kind of see how he's got a crosshatch down there. It's located primarily in the northeast of the northeast, but it does get over into the northwest of the northeast. So just as an example, lot 25 is to be sold, and I'm feeling really generous today, Sandy, so I'm going to sell you lot 25. You okay with that? Okay. So a legal description for lot 25 would go something like this. Lot 25 of the settlement being part of the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter and part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 6, township 16 north, range 6 west, town of Hamilton, La Crosse County, Wisconsin. There is a simplistic beauty to that. And again, if you were interpreting that, you would read it backwards to find yourself in Wisconsin, La Crosse County, find the town of Hamilton, 16.6, find section 6, find those 240s where the settlement is located. Once you found that, you locate lot 25. There you go. There's lot 25. Even works on some older subdivision plats. This is Burns, Farnham, and Burns edition in downtown La Crosse. It's a simple, again, it's a simple way to describe parcels which have been surveyed as part of a subdivision plat. And again, I'd remind you to read it backwards. So in the example in purple, you got Wisconsin, you'd find La Crosse County, find the city of La Crosse, and you'd find Burns, Farnham, and Burns edition, and you'd locate lot 5. Let's see if I can make this work here. Oops. I was going to try and help you find lot 5, but that didn't work out. So, so in this example, lot 1 of block 5, Burns, Farnham, and Burns edition is highlighted in the purple. I'll give myself one more shot here. Example 2, what if you had lots 7 and 8 of block 7 of Burns, Farnham, and Burns edition? Again, reading it backwards. So I'm hoping you can look at this illustration and you can see the larger numbers that are in the center of the blocks. Those are the block designations. So if you look toward the middle and left side of this illustration, you can see block 7, and block 7 has 12 lots within it. And we are looking for lots 7 and 8. Let's see if we can find those. There they are. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it's a really easy way to convey land. It's pretty cut and dry.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
What are the dimensions of those lots?
Those are, if you look on the right-hand side of the illustration, you can see that it's, they're in there. And I'm having a hard time reading it, but I've got 59 feet, 9.5 inches perhaps. If you look on the right-hand side of block 5, you can see the ditto marks going up through there. So lot 7 and lot 12 have numbers on them. And those ditto marks means that those are all the same out there. So I would take that would be scattered all across this entire subdivision.
So they're pretty much all the same unless otherwise noted, right?
Correct. Yes. Yep. Good point. Yep. And as a surveyor in private practice trying to do that, those numbers come in pretty valuable. And a lot of times they don't match up real well with what the plat calls for. So that can cause some concern too. Example number 3, lot 5 in the municipal plat of Hawkins Estates, village of Dogpatch, Kickapoo County, Wisconsin. If you are thinking that, hey, there's no Kickapoo County, Wisconsin, you'd be correct. I actually stole this from the plat review unit. They've got a platting manual, and I thought this was just kind of a nice illustration because not all subdivision plats have to be big deals. They can be subdivision plats, they can be local municipal plats. So, but in any case, we're looking for lot 5 of this. And so in this particular instance, there is no lot and block. It's just numbered 1 through 8. It's an 8 lots subdivision. And we're looking for lot 5. And I'm hoping everybody can see it. If you look kind of a quarter of the way down and toward the middle, you can see lot 5. It looks just like that. So that would, that takes in all of the major subdivisions. Now we go into minor subdivisions, which are called a certified survey map. Again, 8.5 inch by 14 inch sheet of paper. It's a much smaller sheet of paper. We're supposed to reserve the outer 1/2 inch margin for other things. Again, this map gets recorded in the Register of Deeds office, and we're happy to have the Register of Deeds taking care of these as well. As a matter of fact, in La Crosse County now, we no longer actually still record the map. Sherry takes our Register of Deeds, Sherry McBride actually takes an image and she literally sends the original map back to the surveyor or the landowner or whoever brought it in. So we just capture the image. But this is a certified survey map illustrating 4 lots. Again, it's a mini subdivision of up to 4 parcels. They work in much the same way as a subdivision plat. And you can also use it for dedications of streets. Dedications of streets and parks, if it includes a signed owner certificate. Certified survey maps, as a matter of fact, when you are describing a lot within a certified survey map, you have to describe it by certified survey map. Please don't go out and try and do a meets and bounds description of a certified survey map lot that's been recorded. When a certified survey map has been recorded in accordance with this section, the parcels of the land in the map shall, for all purposes, including assessment, taxation, devise, descent, and conveyance, as defined in 706.01 parent 4, described by reference to all of the following: the lot number of the map, the number of the map, the lot or outlot number of the parcel. If the map is assigned a document number, the document number assigned to the map. If the map is assigned a volume and page, the volume and page where the map is recorded, and the name of the county. So you have to describe it by the lot number and the map. Just a good point there. So, so the legal description of lot 3 of this map would go something like this. Lot 3 of Oneida County Certified Survey Map number 003688, recorded in volume 14 CSM's page 93 at document number 0170012, being part of government lot 6. Section 15, Township 38 North, Range 6 East, Town of Hazelhurst, Oneida County, Wisconsin. Isn't it interesting that this is a government lot? Do we know why it's a government lot? You look in the lower left-hand corner of the map, you can see that Yawkey Lake actually got into this section, and that's why it's a government lot. So there's the description of government lot, lot 3. One final illustration. This is a certified survey map done by some guy in La Crosse County. This was actually done for our assisted living home. and it got sold off. But let's take a look at an example here. This would be lot. So if the description called for lot 4, volume 12 of CSM's page 123 at docket number 1608-7372, Village of West Salem, La Crosse County, Wisconsin, the parcel in blue. So I'm just going to back that off. Pretty easy to see that lot 4 is right there. It's a pretty large, significant piece of property. So pretty straightforward. Now you might be thinking at this point, woo, subdivision to CSM descriptions are quite easy. Maybe this legal description thing isn't so difficult after all. Well, I got net news for you. Not so fast, my friend. Meets and bounds descriptions. Meets and bounds are defined as the boundaries or limits of a tract of land, especially as described by reference to lines and distances between points on the land. And a meets and bound description is made up of 5 main components. Starts out with a caption. A caption is an opening statement regarding the general location of the property being described. The second big thing is the preamble, the verbiage that gets you from the point of commencement to the point of beginning. The main body, that's actually the perimeter of the property being described. A summation, concluding remarks regarding the main body. And finally, clauses, other items that may affect or impact the parcel being described. So I've got an example here. This was a survey that was turned in La Crosse County recently on Jewett Road. You can see it's kind of a flag lot, but it opens up with a caption. A parcel of land located in the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 22, town 17 north, range 5 west, town of Burns, La Crosse County, Wisconsin, described as follows. That's that opening caption, the general location. Tell me where I am. So I know I'm in Wisconsin, La Crosse County, town of Burns. I'm in township. Because the town of Burns had that panhandle, we want to know what part of it we're in. We're actually in that same part, the township 17 north, range 5 west. We're in section 22, and we're in the northwest of the northeast. The next step is the preamble. Now the surveyor goes on to describe it even more in more detail, because we're going to do the thing that gets me from the point of commencement to the point of beginning. Commencing at the northeast corner of said section 22, then south 89 degrees, 57 minutes, 14 seconds west along the north line of section 22, a distance of 1,955.05 feet to the point of beginning. So we've just defined how to get, and you can see at the top of the illustration there, the northeast corner is that symbol in the just above the center line of Jewett Road verbiage. And so we're going along that section line, south 89, 57, 14 west, a distance of 1955.05 feet. So now the preamble has gotten us to the start of our legal description, which is called the point of beginning. The next part has to do with the main body, which is the perimeter of the property. And so the surveyor continues west, south 89, 57, 14 west along the section line, a distance of 66.01 feet. Then south 0 degrees, 54 minutes, 19 seconds east, a distance of 919.66 feet. Then south 86 degrees, 31 minutes, 41 seconds east, a distance of 343.03 feet. Then south 6 degrees, no, I'm sorry, north 6 degrees, 1 minute, 13 seconds east, a distance of 203.94 feet. Thence north 1 degree, 41 minutes, 41 seconds west, a distance of 192.51 feet. Thence north 89 degrees, 51 minutes, 15 seconds, a distance of 298.02 feet. Thence north 0 degrees, 54 minutes, 19 seconds west, a distance of 544.45 feet to the point of beginning. And I hope I didn't bore you, but hopefully you were able to follow that legal description. As I was reading it, you could see the surveyor's got it drawn out there, each one of those calls for direction and distance. In a summation, the surveyor said parcel contains 4.01 acres of land. And then finally, we get into the clauses. Said parcel is subject to any and all easements, covenants, and restrictions and rights of way of record. So that, in essence, is what a meets and bounds description can look like in its 5 main parts. So you might be asking yourself, just what do all those numbers and letters, and symbols mean? Well, they're units of measure typically, and so we have to take into account What direction are we going and what distance are we going? Units of measure in what direction? Sometimes you can read a legal description and that legal description can be as simple and as vague as north, south, east, or west. Sometimes it can be as vague as northeasterly, southeasterly, and sometimes as exact as degrees, minutes, and seconds. So what direction? A circle contains 360 degrees. If you start at the center of a circle and run 360 straight lines in equal increments to the edge of the circle, so as to divide the circle into 360 equal parts, each one of those parts is a degree. A circle broken down into even smaller components. So now we have a circle with 360 degrees. Each one of those degrees is further divided into 60 equal parts called minutes. It's designated by an apostrophe symbol. Each minute is then divided down even further into 60 equal parts called seconds and designated by the quote sign. So in this example, I've got a line there kind of off on the lower left-hand corner that is going a direction. So if you start at the top of the line and go down, that example of that line, that's heading in a southeasterly direction, almost directly southeast. It's going south 45 degrees, 28 minutes, 36 seconds east. So here's just a basic conversion that kind of shows you how that all works. We've got a degree that's broken down into 60 minutes, a minute that's broken down into 60 seconds. So just for fun, if you ever wanted to know how many degrees, how many seconds are in a degree, it's 3,600 seconds. So it's broken down really, really minutely. So it really makes for, I think from a surveying perspective, it really breaks it down into a very fine line. Bearings always start, the bearing always starts with either a north or south designation and goes east or west. So in this example, anything in this quadrant, in the upper left-hand corner, you would start with the direction north, something west. In this quadrant, you'd go north, something east. In this quadrant, you go south, something west. And in the southeast quadrant, you go south, something east. You would never start with east, so many degrees south. It's never that way. So again, just to amplify that, which direction? The direction of a leg of a legal description gives an initial reference to either north or south. So you can see in the upper left-hand corner of this illustration, north 60 degrees west. So you start with north, you work your way west. So that's what that looks like. You start north and work your way west. And down in the bottom one down there, you can see I've got one pointed out there is south 20 degrees east. You would start with south and work your way east. You would not start with east and go east 70 degrees south. That's just not done. Although I have seen it done, believe it or not. But the right way to do it is to go south 20 degrees east. So look like that. So in my work as an instructor for Wisconsin Land Title Association, we have an exercise, and they use this star-shaped pattern to kind of help us understand how that would work. So I've read it up the north, south, east, and west here, and we're going to put on what's called a protractor. And here I've got a protractor for you. And Sandy, I'm going to pick on you again because you seem to be the only one that opens her mic. So I'm going to put you on the spot. And so let's take a look at these directions. So you see lines that kind of come out from the center of this, and you can see letter designations there. So on the first one, you can see it says south 50 degrees west. Sandy, what number do you, or what letter do you see at the end of that line, south 50 degrees west?
That would be I.
You got it, yay, awesome. And I'm willing to let anybody else chime in. I don't want to put Sandy on the spot here, but so the next one calls for north 52 degrees east. Does anybody see the letter designation that would work? That works for that one?
C.
Yay! Somebody else chimed in. Thank you.
Somebody else is brave.
All right, the next one is south 79 degrees east. Anybody?
Ooh, E, or is that a B? Or no, it's an E.
There you go. E. Yep, you got it. Anybody else want to take a shot at north 60 degrees west?
L.
There you go. My star pupils. All right. North 12 degrees east.
A.
There you go. Oh, let's see. I did it wrong. You were right. I'm wrong. I looked at the wrong letter. It is B. I'm sorry, it's A. You're right, it's A.
Oh, you got that one wrong. We're gonna remember that.
Yeah, it's not the first time and it will be the last. And I already hit the button for south 73 degrees east, which is letter F. How about north 26 degrees west? Anybody? M, thank you. And then finally, north 84 degrees west. 84 degrees 30 minutes west, because it's kind of halfway in between. Shout it out. Go ahead.
K.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, okay. So forgive me for messing up. I looked at B, so north 12 degrees east should not be B, it should be A. I was wrong.
Hey, Brian, I missed a question earlier. Somebody asked if it was a plat of survey. Deb, sorry, I missed the question. That was maybe, was that the one where you were describing the meets and bounds description?
Okay, yes, yep. So I can back up if that's helpful.
Yeah, her question is that a plat of survey?
It is, yes. Oops, there we go. So it is a plat of survey. And so so maybe I don't want to misunderstand the context of the question, but you might have the question, what's the difference between a certified survey map and a plat of survey? A certified survey map is a recordable document. It's recorded. It's on a 8.5 by 14-inch sheet of paper, and it gets recorded in the Register of Deeds office. A plat of survey can be drawn on anything over an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper. Typically, you use that to illustrate more detail. And a lot of times I will see them that are on 11 by 17 sheets of paper, just simply because it's just a nice scale. A plat of survey differs from a certified survey map in that it's on a different size sheet of paper. It doesn't get recorded. It's actually filed in the county surveyor files. And in case I have a lot of people with a misguided notion that somehow a certified survey map is way better than a plat of survey. The stamp and signature on that plat of survey is just as important as it is on the certified survey map. I want you to know that. It's really important that that surveyor is just as liable for any errors on that survey. It's just not a publicly recorded document. I know here in La Crosse County, we have plats of survey. We've got over, I'm thinking it's 11,000 of them filed in the county surveyor files. And it has value. It's a real survey done by a real surveyor, even though it doesn't have the word certified survey map on it. It's a certified survey in that the surveyor did the work, set stakes, set irons in the ground, drew a map, and came up with a legal description of the property. I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question.
Does he typically number the lots too then on a plat of survey?
No, typically no. Typically it's just one. If you start getting into where you're creating multiple parcels, then you need by law to go to a certified survey.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of odd that it was numbered on that one.
Yeah, it is. Oh, good point. I didn't even notice that. Yep. So thank you for the questions. I do appreciate the questions because I'm sitting in my office at my drafting table and I'm wondering if anybody's listening. So
Keep the questions coming.
yes, please do. You're not bothering me at all. And if you've got a question, something beyond what I'm presenting here, I'm more than happy to answer that question for you. Please do ask.
Okay, here's one.
Okay.
What do you write if it's due north? Or is there a suffix?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
So if I've seen it illustrated a number of ways. When I was in private practice work, I actually spelled it out as N-O-R-T-H. I put it in capital letters. That way you knew it was directly north. I've also seen it expressed as north 0 degrees, 00 minutes, 00 seconds east. I've seen it expressed as north 0 degrees east. So I don't think there's any pat way to do that or correct way to do that, but I do think that that's the right there's no wrong way to do it. As long as you're conveying to your audience, you're the reader of the description. When I did it on a certified survey map, or any survey for that matter, I spelled it out as NORTH, but probably if I were to do it today, I would probably spell it out so that it's consistent with the rest of the legal description as north 0 degrees, 0 minutes, 0 seconds east.
I think I've seen it spelled out, just due north also on,
Yep.
on some
Yes.
legal descriptions.
Yeah. So, yep. Are we at a point, Sandy, do you think that we might want to take a break just to let people stretch their legs? And
Sure. How long do you think? Maybe 10, 15 minutes?
10, how about 2:30? Does that work?
Sure, let's come back at 2:30.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure.
And I hope
Sure.
you all come back.
Me too. I think I'm going to share some slides while we're out.
Okay, sounds good.
Maybe. Hmm.
Hi there. Hi. I'm in the training, so you're gonna get some background. Sheet 7, for the no access. Did she ask for stop signs at that state park at all? Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering.
Have you had a chance to get out to the silent auction yet? Anybody? Make sure you, it's a live silent auction. Bidding ends at 10 a.m. on Friday. There's a lot of neat stuff out there. So I encourage everybody to, I'll put it, a link in the chat a little later. Hope everybody had a nice little break. And I'm going to give it back to Brian. I guess I stopped. No.
Took it away from you.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully everybody had a chance to get out. I stretched my legs. I went for a walk. I'm just kind of, I didn't go outside, trust me. I stayed in and just took a couple laps around the hallways here. So. All right. So we have a question right away. Brian, I have a quick question. If I'm typing a legal description, how do I get a degree symbol? That's a great question. And it's actually got a pretty easy answer and something that's kind of nice to remember for the future. How do you get a degree symbol? There's a keyboard shortcut for a degree symbol. Press the Alt key and then type in 248, release the Alt key, and you should have a degree symbol. Just kind of a nice little thing to have. I get a chuckle out of seeing a lot of legal descriptions where they'll literally spell out the word degrees, or they'll say so many D, they'll put a number and then a D after it to represent degrees, but it's kind of nice to have that degree symbol. So we've talked about what direction to go. We went through a little exercise to talk about the quadrants. Now we're going to talk about the distance. Distances in a legal description can be, in older legal descriptions, are given in chains, rods, or links. So if you ever see that at one chain, and I've got one illustrated on the picture there on the right-hand side, that's what a chain looks like. It's 66 feet long. It's oftentimes abbreviated as CH. One rod is 16.5 feet, and that's typically abbreviated as RD. And a link, as we said, each one of those chains has 100 links, each one of them 0.66 feet long. That's about 8 inches, and that abbreviated as LK. So there are 100 links in a chain. And then what distance? Sometimes those distances, just like the directions, can be quite vague. They can be so many feet, they'll to the nearest 10 feet or nearest 100 feet. In even footage, modern survey distances are given in feet and hundredths, tenths, and 100ths of a foot. So we're not like carpenters that use feet and inches. We use feet and then tenths of a foot, simply because it makes for easier math. You can see a conversion chart there. If you're used to working in inches versus decimals of a foot, you can kind of see the conversion rate there. The inches works at a base of 12, of course, and decimals works in a base of 10. So it's kind of nice to know. The other thing that you want to keep in mind when it comes to meets and bounds description is to trace each course and distance, but we want to get you from the point of commencement to the point of beginning.
Hey, Brian, I got a question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. So you were talking about Alt 248, and somebody else said that they've always used Alt 0176.
I may have learned something today.
So there you go. Alt 0176, and then somebody says Tom Leslie says a very old deed I recently used arpents. I recently read used arpents. How long is an arpent?
Ooh, you've stumped me. You've stumped me, Tom. That's a new one for me. I really don't know. I'm sorry. I'll have to do some Google work here to see if I can figure out what that is.
I don't think I've ever seen that either.
Wow, no, that's new to me. After 45 years, I'm still learning things. So
That's good.
yeah, it is. It is. So again, you want to get from the point of commencement, and typically a point of commencement is a PLSS corner. So again, pointing out the importance of those public land survey system corners. Point of commencement and gets you to the point of beginning. So it leads you it gets you from that point of beginning to from the point of commencement to the point of beginning, so that you can do your envelope around the parcel that you're describing. Hey, Brian, do you have an example of why a meets and bounds description might get written? Well, I'm glad you asked the question. Two people here in La Crosse County, Mr. Keene and Mr. Weibel, own land next to each other. And they get along really good as neighbors. They get along as friends. Mr. Weibel was established there for quite some time. Mr. Keene bought a piece of property and built his house. But Mr. Keene has a problem, and it's illustrated not overly abundantly good here in this picture, but you can see that his driveway actually cuts across a portion of the corner of Mr. Forgot my people's names, Mr. Weibel's property. So we've got some options. They do get along well. They're good neighbors. So the options consist of these: move the driveway, get an easement, or buy some land. Well, they know that going to an attorney can be a really expensive process, and to fight over this is really a bad thing. So they came to an agreement, and Mr. Weibel agreed to sell Mr. Keene this yellow-shaped piece of property. It kind of squares it off with the road for him, and really when you have one of those long triangles like that, there's not a lot you can do with it anyway. but now it's going to get that driveway completely on that property. So I've got a good working relationship with all my surveyors, and Chris Feckner from Cooley Region Land Surveyors is one of them. He was contacted to come out and do a survey of that little yellow triangular piece. So this is a plat of survey. It was on 11.5 or 11 by 17 sheet of paper. And this is a close-up of what that parcel looks like. So let's see how that legal description got written. So the legal description says in the caption, part of the northwest of the southeast of section 34, town 17 north, range 7 west. And so I'm reading the top part of the left illustration there. Town of Onalaska, La Crosse County, Wisconsin, described as follows. So now we know where we're located, and we get into the preamble. Now we're going to get from the point of commencement to the point of beginning. Commencing at the east quarter corner, so that's up in the upper right-hand corner of this illustration. And we're going to go south 57 degrees, 47 minutes, 40 seconds west, 2,080.02 feet to the easterly right-of-way line of Green Cooley Lane and the point of beginning of this description. So that's the preamble that gets us. Now we're going to get to the heart of the matter. Thence, so we got to the point of beginning. And so thence along said easterly right-of-way line, north 54 degrees, 37 minutes, 41 seconds west, 72.54 feet. You can see that he's got that illustrated on the map just fine. That works really good. Thence continuing along said easterly right-of-way line on the arc of a 153.00 foot radius curve concave to the northeast, the chord of which bears north 46 degrees, 4 minutes, 19 seconds west, 45.53 feet. I don't know about you, but I'm a little confused. That whole nomenclature really got me nervous. What's going on here? It's okay, it's a curve, don't be scared now. There are a couple things that I would encourage you to keep in mind when it comes to reading a description that has a curve. You want to look for these two items. Concave to the, you want to look for what direction is that telling you that that's concave to. The other thing I want you to look for, the long chord of which bears. So when it comes to concave, I always think of it as looking out of a cave. If I'm standing in a cave looking out, what direction am I facing? So on this illustration, you can see that I've got me and my wife Brenda and our stick figures. We're inside that cave and we're looking this direction. That curve is concave to the, it's concave to the northeast. There's me and Sandy in another curve. We're going to look at this curve. We're looking out of that curve. We're looking at that curve. It is concave to the southwest. So just, it's a simple way that helps me remember. I've had other people look at me like I've got turnips growing out of my ears going, what are you talking about? But this works for me. If I'm inside that cave looking out, where does the curve go? Just a couple more examples. This is just a simple one. If you're standing inside that cave looking out, that curve is concave to the, anybody want to give me an answer?
Northwest?
Northwest, thank you. That curve is concave to the northwest. Here's our stick figure people again. They're looking out of the cave. They're looking this direction. That curve is concave to the, anyone?
Southeast.
Thank you very much. Concave to the southeast. Awesome. So just to kind of, so that you know which direction the curve is facing, that really helps me. And then when you get to the words, the long chord of which bears, or the chord of which bears, a lot of times you don't see the word long there. Think of it this way. While the description follows the arc of the curve, and don't make no mistake, the description is following that curved line. This is the shortcut that gets me from the start of the curve to the end of the curve on a straight line. So in this illustration, we're going to go from the PC to the PT. PC means point of curvature. PT means point of tangency. So in the first one, that's the shortcut that we're taking. That's what's going to get described. They're describing that line by a bearing and distance. And again, the actual property line is following the curve, but this is the shortcut and math that gets you from one point to the other. Same way up there, gets you from the PC to the PT. And there is a whole bunch of fun stuff. I actually have grown to love circular curves. There's a lot of geometry involved here, but once you get to know some of those terms and what it's trying to tell you, it's actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward, especially if you work with it all the time. So now we're back to our legal description. And so we've got to that curve. Thence continuing along the east right-of-way line on the arc of a 153-foot radius curve. So what that's saying is, if you were to connect two lines here, each one of them 153 feet long, that creates the vertex of that curve. So just to kind of give you a sense what that information is telling you, so obviously the bigger that number, the flatter the curve would be, and the shorter that number is, the more curve, the sharper that curve would be. So we continue on, we get to, so we go along the chord, which bears north 46 degrees, 4 minutes, 19 seconds west, 45.53 feet. That gets us to the asphalt. And you can see now, if you look at the illustration on the left-hand side, a lot of that driveway was on Mr. Weibel's property. So it's a good thing they came to an agreement on that. Thence, following the description, north 89 degrees, 17 minutes, 13 seconds east, 130.65 feet. Then south 27 degrees, 13 minutes, 54 seconds west, 84.58 feet to the point of beginning of this description. He doesn't have any type of area other than what he shows on the map, and he said also makes the statement that it's subject to any easements, covenants, and restrictions of record. So that's what I got for you. Hey, Brian, I have a question about meander lines. Is a meander line a property line? And that's actually a great question because that comes up quite frequently in my line of work. The short answer is no. And I realize that that's a pretty broad statement because there are times when I've seen meander lines used as property lines, but I don't want to get us off in the mud. So we're going to keep it nice and level here. So a meander line is the legal definition of a meander line, a usually irregular surveyed line following the outline of a body of water that is used to measure abutting property and is not a boundary line. So I got that from Merriam-Webster, which I think is actually a pretty good definition. This is Riverview Estates in La Crosse County, and you can see that it's along the La Crosse River. You can see this is the location sketch for that subdivision, and you can see the crosshatched area. The whole northern and western and part of the eastern boundary actually is the La Crosse River. This is a picture of that. I know you can't see it real well, but I'm going to bring you closer in here. And so the legal description as it states, and I'm going to define the south line. So if you look at that south line, then north 88 degrees, 59 minutes, 22 seconds west, 802.60 feet, along the north line of Twin Oaks Addition and along the north line of Second Addition to Twin Oaks to a meander point, south 88, 59, 22 east, 56 feet more or less from the water's edge. So they've taken us to that meander point that's 56 feet away from the edge of the water. So that's way on the left-hand side of that illustration. You can see that there's a marker set. You can see that circle at the south end of the line that says north 26 degrees, 30 minutes, 41 seconds. There's a circle there. That's the beginning of the meander line. Lost my place. Hang on, folks. Thence north 26 degrees, 30 minutes, 41 seconds east, 167.77 feet along a meander line. Thence continuing along said meander line north 14 degrees, 13 minutes, 56 seconds east, 173.92 feet. Thence continuing along said meander line north 4 degrees, 27 minutes, 00 seconds east. So what the surveyor's doing here, we can't survey the actual edge of the water. And so what the surveyor is doing is defining what's called a meander line that gives reference to that, to the river. So the next thing we know, this is the entire legal description. It is a pretty big and lengthy one. But when you get to the very end of it, I want to draw your attention to this. It gets to the very end of the legal description and it says, including that land lying between the meander line and the water's edge of the La Crosse River. So that gives me some assurance as a landowner in Riverview Estates that I own the land between the meander line and the water's edge. So just so to give you a sense or a taste of what those meander lines look like on a subdivision plat. typically the people do in fact extend out to the water's edge. The reason we create a meander line is to be able to monument it and define it with a geometric figure rather than trying to identify the edge of a water, which is subject to change. I hope that's helpful. Drawing out legal descriptions. I included a few slides to just kind of give you a sense of what it means to draw out a legal description. And typically, when I do my instruction for the Wisconsin Land Title Association, I do use a compass and we do use a scale. And I know that's probably old school again, but I think it's healthy to know how to draft something or how to draw something out with a paper and pencil. I know that probably doesn't fly real good in the day and age of CAD and GIS, but this is the way I used to do it. And I think it's actually healthy to understand just to get a sense of what it looks like even before you go in and try and draft it digitally. So legal description number 1, part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 1, township 2 north, range 22 east, more particularly described as follows. Commencing at the northwest corner of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 1, town 2 north, range 22 east, then south 825 feet. You'll note that they went straight south. There's no bearings and distances. They're going straight south. So to answer someone's question out there, this is how it was done in this legal description. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's the way they chose to do it. Thence east, a distance of 334.4 feet. Thence north, a distance of 825 feet to the north line of said section 1. Thence west up along and upon the north line of said section 1, a distance of 334.4 feet to the place of beginning, lying and being in the town of Summers, Kenosha County, Wisconsin. So you really needed to read this one backwards to find out what state, what county, and what township you were in. So what would that look like? And so a lot of times I'll just draw myself out a nice little square representing a 40-acre tract of land. They start at the northwest corner, they go south 825 feet, then they go east 334 feet, they go north 825 feet, they go back to the west to the point of beginning. So this one is really, really easy, I think. Pretty straightforward, but I have a question. Does anybody know how many acres are in this parcel? I know some of you do. But to make it easy for you, and so I'm not dragging this out, we would multiply out 825 times 334.4 feet to come up with a sum of, with a total of 275,880 square feet. And why is that number important? Because there's another important number, and I hope if you take nothing back from this session, I hope you memorize the number 43,560, because that represents how many square feet are in an acre. So if we multiply out 825 by 334.4 to get 275,880 and take that number and divide it by 343,560, we would find out that we've got 6.33 acres in that parcel. So memorize this number, commit it to memory, don't ever forget it. It's really, really important. Legal description number 2. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but begin on the west line of said quarter section at a point south 0 degrees 15 minutes east 990.8 feet from the northwest corner thereof. Thence south 0 degrees 15 minutes east 200 feet. So I'm just going to move on. So we started at the northwest corner of this 40. We went south 990.8 feet and we went south 0 degrees 15 minutes. What does that tell you about this particular 40? Anybody got any notions? When you start to see numbers with degree symbols and apostrophes after them, that tells me something. It tells me that it's been surveyed. And our typical section, our perfect world section, that's 1,320 feet. We're going to find out that it's not, this one, it doesn't fit into the perfect world. It's actually had some survey work done on it. So it starts at the northwest corner, goes south 015 east, 990.8 feet to the northwest corner thereof. Then, so they get down They come down 990.8 feet. Then they continue same direction, 200 feet. Thence south 89 degrees, 6 minutes east, 1,321.74 feet. A typical 40 is 1320, so they've gone beyond that. But that tells me that, again, that this has been surveyed. Thence north 0 degrees, 12 minutes, 40 seconds west, 200 feet along and upon the east line of the northwest quarter of said section, of that section. So I love that because they're giving us a call. They're reassuring us that, yeah, that's more than a standard section, but guess what? We hit that line. We hit the east line of that 40. It doesn't extend beyond that. So that tells me that we're in good shape. And that's really nice when you see a call within a legal description. Thence north 89 degrees, 6 minutes west. All that's saying, when you think about that protractor that we worked with, that's basically heading straight west. I mean, I realize that it's 54 minutes off of being straight west, but for all intents and purposes, if you're just trying to sketch something out, it's basically straight west, 1,321.60 feet to the point of beginning. Lying and being in the town of Bristol, Kenosha County, County of Kenosha, state of Wisconsin. So, you may encounter some clues that are going to tell you that there's been some survey work done on it. Okay, this is a fairly simple and straightforward one too, and I'm just going to cut to the chase. So that part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of section 12, township 13 north, range 17 east, in the town of Lomira, Dodge County, Wisconsin, described as follows, to wit. I always love to wit. Commencing at the northwest corner of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter, then south. Now here in this particular instance, I want you to see something. There is no point of beginning because they called their point of commencement. Their point of commencement is in fact the point of beginning, and that happens sometimes. Again, there's a diverse crew out there that's writing these legal descriptions, and sometimes they don't understand the difference between point of commencement and a point of beginning. So we're beginning at that northwest corner of this 40. Then south 1,315 feet. Now, we don't know if this is a perfect world type of legal description or if it's actually a survey that takes me to the southwest corner of this 40. I'm going to say that it doesn't, because while it calls for me to go along the west line, it doesn't tell me to stop at the southwest corner. So I'm assuming this thing is stopping about 5 feet north of the southwest corner of this 40. Thence north 35 degrees east, 00 north 35 degrees 00 minutes 00 seconds east, 1,320 feet to a point. So they come down there, then they go north 35 degrees east, a distance of 1,315 feet. I'm sorry, a distance of 1,320 feet to a point. Thence north 73 degrees 15 minutes 00 seconds west, 792.00 feet to the point of beginning. So that tells me there was probably some level of survey work done out here, because they've actually got some dimensions and that north 73 degrees west, 15 minutes west tells me that there's probably at least some form of survey work done out here. I hope that works for everybody. Okay, I'm going to break this up a little bit by asking a question. What does the word thence mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I went to some extensive research and I searched high and low for a really, really good answer. The best one I could come up with was this. Thence, from that place. I have no idea where the word came from. To me, it sounds like the old King James version of the Bible, thence. But I don't really have a good answer, but it's what is typically used in legal descriptions is words thence. So when you get to the end of one call, you start the next phrase with the word thence. Oh, this is a fun one. Legal description 5, the south 6 acres of the south 6 acres of the north 10 acres of the south 20 acres of the west half of the northwest quarter of section 15, town 7 north, range 21 east, city of Wauwatosa, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. This ought to be fun. So again, reading it backwards, we're in Wisconsin, we're in Milwaukee County. We're in the city of Wauwatosa. We're in range 21 east. We're in township 7 north. We're in section 15. So I've got section 15 amplified here for you, and you can see that That would be the northwest quarter of that. So now we need the west half of that northwest quarter. So it looks like that. And what we're looking for is the south 20 acres. Now, the unfortunate part about this legal description, it originally called for the northwest quarter. So when a deed gets recorded in here, Sandy's probably going to tract it in all 4 quarters of that section, unfortunately, which is a shame because it really only has to do with the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter. So we've got the south 20 acres of the west half of the northwest quarter. So now the next thing it calls for is the north 10 acres of the south 20. So now I've kind of zoomed in here a little bit to focus on that southwest quarter of the northwest quarter. And what I've got illustrated in blue there has to do with the 10 acres. If we, in a perfect world, we know that the entire thing contains 40 acres, there are 4 10-acre tracts. If we divide the 1,320 in half, we get 660. If we divide that in half, we get 330 feet. So 1,320 east and west by 330 feet north and south gives us the 10 acres that we're looking for. So now we need the south 10 acres. So that gives us the 10 acres. So now my question, ladies and gentlemen, how do we determine the north-south dimension for the 6 acres? Anybody want to take a stab at it? We know that that's 330 feet. And if you're like me, and if you hadn't done this for a long time, it's me during the math test. I have no memory of this place. Well, let's look at it. What dimension do we know east and west in this perfect world example? We know that what the east-west dimension is 1,320 feet, right? So if we want to find out what that dimension is, we would take our famous number, 43,560 times 6 acres to get 261,360. We take that number and to take 21,360 and divide it by the 1,320 that we know, our north-south dimension is 198 feet. So there you go. Now you know what that dimension theoretically should be in a perfect world example. The dimension should be 198 feet because now we got the south 6 acres of the north 10 acres of the south 20 acres of the west half of the northwest quarter of section 15. Wait a minute, how do you know that number is correct? I love these memes. Well, we want to find out. So if we wanted to check that, what's another way we could check that? Let's take the north 4 acres of that 10-acre tract. How would we find that? Well, we take 43,560, our famous number, times 4. That gives us 174,240. Take that number and divide it by 1,320 feet, which is our known quantity for that parcel. Our north-south dimension for the remaining 4 acres is 132. So the whole 10 acres should add up to 330. And if you take 132 and 198, add them together, you get 330 feet. So there you go.
Got a
Oh, I got
question,
another
Brian.
question. Yep. Sorry.
So are there going to be problems with legal description writers downloading county parcel maps from websites into a software system they have and writing legal descriptions from that instead of actually going out to do a proper survey and writing an accurate legal description?
Yes, it will. It will cause severe problems because those legal descriptions will eventually be surveyed or a neighboring property is going to be surveyed, and it could lead to a lot of problems. For those of you that aren't in the surveying community but are in the GIS community, GIS does not stand for Geographic Information Systems. It stands for Get It Surveyed. That's the only one right way to get it done right. So thank you for the question, but you're right. And I frequently get phone calls here at La Crosse County, people wanting to know, well, what are the coordinates of my property? Because I want to go out and survey my property. And we get into a whole another, I could go on for 3 hours about coordinate systems, and we don't want to go there. But for someone with their little handheld GPS unit that wants to, that they bought, from Garmin, that they got at, Bass Pro Shop or whatever, That's not going to cut it. You need a higher quality. And number one, you need to know what you're doing with the coordinates that you're dealing with. So that's a great question. And yes, it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, it has happened in Monroe County. I can show you an example of somebody that tried to write a legal description with a GPS unit. And it's just awful. So I hope I've
Get it
answered the
surveyed.
question.
Yep,
Yep, get
that's
it
the moral of
surveyed,
the
yep.
story, right? Get it
Amen.
surveyed.
Yep, for sure. Yep. Hey, Brian, what if there's a problem with the recorded information already on file? I was hoping you'd ask this question, and I'm glad you did. So this is a plat that is recorded in La Crosse County. It's called Lord and Rodolph's edition. It was done in 1855, the 131 lot subdivision. It has a total number of 131 lots, and a lot of times you'll see these older subdivisions and they'll have the block numbers, and you can kind of see the block numbers. If you look closely at the center of each block, you can see a number written there. And a lot of those numbers on a lot of subdivisions would be numbered 1 through 12. And you repeat that 1 through 12 in block 5, block 6, block 7. This one actually just went through and numbered all the lots individually, but they still assigned lot numbers, which is pretty cool. So like I said, on November 10th of 1855, I certified that I did survey the above entitled plat addition to La Crosse, the same being the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of section 5, township 15 north, range 7 west of the 4th principal meridian. And the within plat is a true copy of the work that was done by me, William Hood, the surveyor. Actually, it's a pretty good piece of work. I've seen a lot worse than this one. But I want to point out 2 things to you on this. Especially the area circled in red and the red arrow up in the upper right-hand corner. There's a problem with the numbering in lot 11, and I've zoomed in here. Does anybody see an issue with the numbering within lot 11? Don't be bashful.
There's 2 lot 76s.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Lot 76 is there 2 times. Uh-oh, what does that do to the numbering sequence? Well, if you look, it goes 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So the east side is pretty good. When they jumped across, they went 76, 77, and they skipped 78. So the sequencing is right. They've just mislabeled the 2 lots in the southwest corner of block 11. And I got reached out to by my Register of Deeds. And she indicated to me, not only did we have that problem with 2 lot 76s, but this little parcel here, this little red piece, it has no designation. We were struggling with how to track that. When it does come in, I think they put it in the 40. And so we tried to find a resolution to how to fix these 2 problems within this plat. And of course, I went to our friends at the Wisconsin Register of Deeds Association, and they have just a marvelous website, and they've got forms on there. And they have a form called a correction instrument, which we made use of. And so what I did is I created an affidavit of correction, since the people that were involved with the plat are long gone. And so Sherry McBride, our Register of Deeds, asked me to step in and record a document that noted these 2 problems. So this is what the document said. I, Brian H. Meyer, do hereby state that I serve as the county surveyor for La Crosse County. That works. Number 2, that there's a plat called Lord and Rodolph's edition recorded at volume 1, page 10 at document number plat 1-PG10 in the La Crosse County Register of Deeds office. That said plat shows an obvious error in the numbering sequence of the lots within block 11, see figure 1. That the lot located in the southwest corner of said block 1 is incorrectly labeled 76. That the lot located in the southwest corner of said block should be correctly labeled 77. That the lot immediately north of the lot in the southwest corner of block 11 is incorrectly labeled 77. Number 7, that the lot immediately north of the lot in the southwest corner of block 11 should be corrected to be labeled 78. Then I go on to address, so we've taken care of the problems in block 11. Now in point 8, I go on to point out the small piece of the northeast corner, the small parcel in the northeast corner of said plat, see figure 2, depicted on the plat as being bounded on the north and east sides by the north and east lines of the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter and of Section 5, Township 15 North, Range 7 West, and bounded on the west by the east line of 9th Street and bounded on the south by the north line of Market Street, has no lot number. That said small piece should have the lot number 132. I make this affidavit for the purpose of correcting these inconsistencies and these inconsistencies only. So in essence, the highest number, so what I did is I sought out to find out what was the highest number the plat had, and I just made that little piece of land up in the upper right-hand corner 132. So there's the corrections that we made. We corrected the lot numbers so that when people now come in, if a surveyor came in and wanted to, and they were required to survey lot 76, they'll know which lot 76 it is, because 76 in the southwest corner should be 77. So anyway,
Well,
that's how we fixed it.
The question we were getting is, how were the deeds recorded prior to your correction document? Because there's probably lots of deeds and mortgages that were on those lots previously, and now you've changed them.
We have, and I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. I should have maybe refreshed my memory on this. This goes back about 9 years when I did this, so I don't know the answer to that. But you're absolutely right. There are impacts on that, and I think the notion was going forward, we at least have some notion as to which lot 76 we're talking about. I don't know if they had a designation 76 southeast and 76 southwest or east and west. I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question, so sorry about that. Wait, do we have to go by what is written? Can't you just go by what I meant to say? Well, this is Susie Jefferson, and Susie Jefferson owns a 40-acre tract of land. She sells to Smith the west 660 feet, and she sells to Jones the east 660 feet. Because of course everyone knows a 40-acre tract of land measures 1,320 feet by 1,320 feet. If you look in the front of a plat book, it tells you, it lays all that stuff out for you. So you can feel pretty comfortable in grabbing those numbers and running with them, right? Well, remember we talked about the reality? What if a section split took place and Susie's 40 looked more like this, where it was 1,325 feet east and west? A survey shows that 40 is actually 1,325 feet wide, leaving a gap that's still owned by Jefferson. That's some of the problems that can be caused when you don't get it surveyed. What if the reality showed this? What if it actually showed that it was only 1,315 feet wide east and west? Well, now you've created a 5-foot overlap, and I'm not going to get into senior deed and all that good stuff, but you can see where this is going to create some confusion among people, because it was perceived that 40 was going to be 1,320 feet wide, and now you find out it's 1,315. It does create the potential for an overlap. So we'll get around this whole dimension thing. We'll just say we're going to sell the west 20 acres to Smith and the east 20 acres to Jones. That should take care of our problem, because everybody knows that it's a 40-acre tract of land. It's got to contain 40 acres, right? Well, no. And you got the same problem with the acreage as you do with the dimensions. So the better way to do this is to deed the west half of that 40 to Smith and the east half of the 40 to Jones, thereby eliminating any gap or overlap. Just kind of a simpler way to do it. It states it much simpler, and that way you don't get into that whole dynamic of trying to figure out whether or not it was 40-acre tract, whether it was 1,325 feet or 1,315 feet. This one comes from Monroe County, and it comes from Brannick. Brannick is the real property lister, but this one is titled "How a Missing Semicolon Can Create a Title Problem." Again, thank you, Brannick Bates. He's the real property lister from Monroe County. This farm was quite an extensive farm, but this was how it was spelled out, and I want to draw your attention to what's in yellow. So I've sketched it out on an aerial photo here. I took a screenshot of the GIS mapping out there. It's on Justice Road. And the legal description for these 240s calls for the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter and the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter lying west of the road. So that's pretty straightforward. It's these 240s, everything in there. That's how I perceive that to be. So works out pretty good for me. I guess I don't see a problem with it. Well, Brannick said, according to the previous deeds and mapping, the lying west of the town road in the highlighted section should only apply to the southeast of the northeast. In previous deeds, the two quarters were separated by a semicolon and nothing was on separate lines. I thought this was a good example of formatting and punctuation making a big difference in the description. And Brannick is right, because when you read that legal description as it is, right now it says that, but what it's forgetting, and I hope you can see this, that little purple piece up there, it's orphaned that little piece. That piece is no longer included with the farm when in fact it should be included with the farm. So a better way to have said this is with the punctuation. The southwest quarter of the northeast quarter, what's in brown there, and then the green part, and you can see that it's gone across the road now. It's the entire 40-acre tract of land, and then the southeast of the northeast lying west of the town road. That piece. So that's what that should look like, but that legal description does in fact say something very different. I've got highlighted here, I've selected the two parcels. That's what it should look like. That's the way Monroe County has chosen to map it based on those older legal descriptions. But I think sometimes in the rush to try and get a document typed up, and I don't want to shed a bad light on attorneys, but sometimes I think it seems easier if you can kind of condense things. And so they chose to take that semicolon out, and it really could lead to some title problems. So. Hey, Brian, do you have any examples of errors in descriptions that you've been involved with? Well, I'm afraid I have to tell you, yes, I do. As county surveyor, I review all certified survey maps in La Crosse County. So not only in the townships, but I also take a look at everything that comes in, even in the villages and cities of La Crosse, in La Crosse County. So that's me, Superman. I got this certified survey map in. This again is Chris Beckner. Chris does great work, and his certified survey maps are always top notch. And so I got to looking at this certified survey map, and I was very pleased with what I saw, intricate detail. So I went down my checklist. I looked for the north arrow, the scale, the legend, the seal, the date, a bearing reference, the widths of all the adjoining roads, buildings, description, closure, area, municipal approval. We've got everybody's signature. Everything's looking really good. And so Brian puts his stamp on there. I hereby certify this survey complies with the provisions of the La Crosse County Subdivision Control Ordinance. Signed, Brian H. Meyer, La Crosse County Surveyor, August 12th of 2013. Well, I found out the hard way that the map wasn't complete. I zoomed in here. Anybody see what's missing on this certified survey map?
It's missing a lot number.
Thank you. It's missing. I looked at this thing and I shared it with a real property lister, and I shared it with Dan Lease. Dan was our research guy at the time, and he missed it. I mean, all of us, the surveyor missed it, I missed it. And so while I'm Superman, I do have a tendency to fall once in a while. So I reached out to Chris, and Chris was really very gracious in how he approached it. He said, don't worry about it. We'll get an affidavit of correction. And so we have an affidavit of correction on file now. And again, he stipulates who he is and what happened, where the error was, and what he did to fix it. So he's created this little affidavit of correction that says that the lot should be labeled Lot 1. So even surveyors with 45 years worth of experience have their problems. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're ready because it's quiz time, and I hope you've been paying attention. I wish I had prizes to give away or gold stars or something, but actually I'm thinking this could be a lot of fun, okay? So I hope you'll be a good sport and bear with me. Today is President's Day, and so I thought, well, which US president mentioned in this workshop was an advocate for the public land survey system? Talk to me. Anybody remember?
There's lots of A's in the chat.
Yay, that is correct. Thank you for all of you contributing in the chat. Thomas Jefferson was a big proponent of the public land survey system. So that was even before he became president. So that's a cool thing. Okay, this is the biggie. How many square feet are in an acre? Is it 56?
E.
I'm here. Yes, thank you. Are we getting them in the chat too?
Mhm.
Yep, they're in the chat too.
Yay. Thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. Memorize that number. Never let it leave your mind, okay? All right. How many sections are in a typical PLSS township? I hope the chat's going crazy. How
It's
many we
going
got?
crazy with Ds and 36s.
Ds and 36s. You are correct. Thank you, people. All right. What does PLSS stand for? A, perfectly located standard section. B, proper latitude section station. C, public land survey system. Or D, planetary located stationing system.
There's lots of Cs except in Rhinelander. Gene Shepherd found the hodag in section 37.
He did, in fact, and I was going to make that part of this presentation. But C is the correct answer. You have no idea how much fun I had trying to create something that stood for PLSS other than the public land survey system. So that was fun for me. Next question. What does the chord or long chord stand for? I had fun with this one too. Letter A, a musician holding a note for a long time. B, an extra long clothesline segment. C, the shortcut that gets me from the beginning of a curved segment to the end. Or D, an expression of latitude in a description.
The chat's all Cs.
You guys have paid attention. You just made my day, people. Thank you. Instead of an apostrophe and a quote symbol, these symbols represent what in a legal description? Is it feet and inches? Is it radians and quadrants? Is it chains and links? Or is it minutes and seconds?
Consensus is, oh, well, D. Somebody said A, but I'm sure she meant D.
And technically, there
Oh,
even
could
E is right, but when it comes to a legal description, it almost always focuses on the minutes and seconds. So you're kind of right, but let's stay focused on what it is, at least within the confines of a legal description. All right. In an ideal world, a standard non-fractional section contains how many acres? Is it 460, 640, 540, or 400 acres?
The consensus is B.
You guys rock the house. Thank you. Well done.
They paid attention.
They did, or they knew it coming in too. There are 360 degrees in a circle. How many minutes are in a degree?
Ooh. Is it A?
It is A, yay. All right, now I got a double question for you. How long is a chain? First one on the left-hand side, how long is a chain?
Well, I got some C's, 66 feet. Yeah, 66.
66 seems to be the consensus. 66 would be correct, C. Okay, how long is a rod? We didn't really touch on that too much here, but does anybody know how long a rod is? In a legal description, you might come across that number.
That'd be C, 16.5 feet.
You guys rock. You're awesome. Thank you. Well done. Okay, and I have one final question for you. What structure can be built on an outlot? So what kind of a structure can be built on an outlot?
Couple of nuns.
Thank you. That's probably the right answer, but for fun, I had this. What kind of structure can be built on an outlot? An outhouse. I'm just kidding. That's just a joke. Always make sure you check with your local zoning office to see if and when and what you can build on an outlot. So, but
Nice disclaimer.
yeah. Well, I actually got that joke from Jerry Mahoon. Jerry is an instructor down at UW-Platteville, and he told that joke at a conference one time, and I thought that was really cool. So I got to give credit where credit is due. Hey, Brian, don't forget about the public service announcement. Oh, I have a public service announcement for you. Land surveying is a great career choice. Like I said, I've been doing this for 45 years, and I cannot tell you the joy it has been to work in the career of land surveying. it's a great career field. And if so, I'm reaching out to you, my audience, to see if you have any sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, acquaintances, friends that are looking for something to do in life, because land surveying is a wonderful career. You might ask yourself, well, what exactly does a land surveyor do? Land surveyors are professionals who use their expertise in science, mathematics, and technology to establish official boundaries on land. Most land surveyors enjoy a work atmosphere that's a combination of outdoor exploration, indoor research, and preparation of legal documents and reports. Long story short, we assist people in understanding where their property lines are. Why is it important? We depend on surveying to ensure the order in the physical world around us. Surveyors play an integral role in land development, from planning and design of land subdivisions through to the final construction of roads, utilities, and landscaping. Surveyors are among good company, working closely with their peers in the fields of engineering, architecture, geology, and planning. Their role underpins these industries. Surveyors are the first people on any construction site measuring and mapping the land. These preliminary measurements are then used by architects to understand and make the most of the unique landscape when designing, and by engineers to plan structures accordingly and safely. As such, surveyors ensure buildings not only fit with the landscape, but are able to be constructed. And these are just my favorite things about land surveying, why it's a great, as you reach out to those in your world, surveying challenges you mentally, it challenges you physically. You have an opportunity to work with some really cool equipment. You have an opportunity to see parts of America that most people don't. Those back 40s are actually wonderfully beautiful places to be. You'll have the opportunity to help people, and there's a high demand for surveyors, and it's easier to get a job. You get to work with GPS equipment. You work with GIS, of course. You actually get to work with drones, and that's really a new aspect of surveying, and it's really, really cool. More cool equipment, you get to draft, you get to calculate, do your computing and drafting on computer. And the scenic beauty, you get to see some of the most marvelous places in the world. I work in Western Wisconsin, and it's just been incredible for me. That being said, I can also tell you I've seen some of the murkiest swamps too, and I've actually had to go out in there, but it's still a fun adventure. And you get to help people, and that's probably the most gratifying thing that I can say. I love helping people when they run into a problem, or they're having a problem with their neighbor. Try and get people together and help them solve their problems. I'm telling you all this because the average age of a land surveyor in Wisconsin is about 60 years of age, and there's a genuine need for land surveyors. How much does a land surveyor make? I just went out to Indeed.com and pulled this number. This is from, well, it's 2 years old, 2-year old information now. This is from January of 2019. At that time, it was almost $69,000. I'm pretty sure the number is well over 70 now. So just to give you an idea of what kind of money you could be looking at making there. So again, happy President's Day. I want you can help remember all this, because this is the National Surveyor's Monument. Everybody thinks it's Mount Rushmore, but in the eyes of a surveyor, it's the National Surveyor's Monument. George Washington was a surveyor. Thomas Jefferson himself was a surveyor, and Abraham Lincoln served as a surveyor. Interesting note that George Washington was the very first county surveyor in America in Culpeper County, Virginia. Lincoln served as a deputy surveyor in Sangamon County, Illinois, and Jefferson was county surveyor in Albemarle County, Virginia. And I've actually come to find out, people have told me now, that Teddy actually did some survey work. He was never a county surveyor, but he did work in South America, believe it or not. So he's actually got some familiarity. So that leads us to our final, we're coming in for a landing, folks, and I'm going to get you out of here early, and I hope that works for you. A different kind of description. Speaking of a description, how do you think people would describe you? And I've had people describe me as energetic and fun. And on some days I'm grumpy and ornery, and for the most part I'm happy and helpful and clever, and sometimes when I'm in a bad mood I can be cold. And I went through and just started picking out a whole bunch of attributes that people might have. And so when I looked at this list, the older I get, the more absent-minded I get. When I looked at this list, I'm energetic. For 61 years old, I think I got a lot of energy. So I enjoy going out for a run, and I enjoy exercising. And I enjoy doing stuff like this. I really do. I always try and be helpful. One of the great aspects of my job as a county surveyor is helping people. My assistant Corey Hughes and I answer a lot of questions from people. I can be impulsive, and I think that's kind of a good thing. It keeps things fresh, keeps it lively, kind of helps, keeps it from being boring. As you're finding out right now, I'm long-winded. I like to talk in front of people, and I can be very long-winded. I can also be very passionate. I love what I do for a living, and the fact that I'm even doing this presentation tells you a little bit about the passion I have for my work. I try and be respectful because I know that even though I'm a land surveyor, I have to work respectfully with people in similar lines of work. Work with my register of deeds. I work with my real property lister. I work with taxpayers of La Crosse County to help them find the answers they need. And I also find that I'm vulnerable. That's why I told you a little bit about messing up on checking a certified survey map that didn't have a lot number on it. So just some thoughts about what I see in myself. But I have a final thought for you today regarding descriptions. How would you describe someone who has had a huge impact on your life? And that person might be a parent or a grandparent, a mentor, a sibling, a teacher, a cousin, a child, a coworker, a friend, or a grandchild. So my encouragement to you today is to write a letter and describe their influence. This is a picture of me and my mom. My mom's birthday is January 20th, and I always thought it was really, really cool that the presidents of the United States, when they got inaugurated, chose my mom's birthday to get inaugurated on. So I was pretty tickled by that thought. But this is me and my mom on her birthday. I took her out for breakfast that day. But my mom found out some news shortly after this picture was taken. Cancer entered her life. Started in her lymph nodes, worked its way into her liver, eventually made its way to her colon, and finally into her bones. What I want to tell you about one happy birthday that my mom had. It was her last birthday on earth. It happened on January 20th of 2017. I woke up that morning and realized that I hadn't gotten my mom a gift. I bought a card, but I always like to give her something. One of the great joys of my life is writing. And so in 18 minutes, I sat down and wrote my mom a quick note. Happy 78th birthday, Mom. Along with your card, I wanted to write you a note to tell you how much I love you and how much you mean to me. I am the man I am today, due in large part because of you. God built me from the ground up through you. I have a genuine love of music because of you. You filled our house with music, and when I was growing up, I loved it. My daily life has music in it, and is a direct result of your influence. Thank you for your smile and teaching me about the importance of smiling myself. I wear one every day. You have the most genuine smile of anyone I know. I smile just thinking of you smiling. Thank you for teaching me about how to deal with hardships and struggles. I can remember times when things would get ugly and you would encourage me with words, let it roll off your back like a duck. And it works. I still rely on that advice today, and I still apply it at times when things can get ugly for me. Thank you for loving me at the times when I was less than lovable. I've heard it said that the two most difficult processes in life are birth and going from adolescence to adulthood. In the first, you squeeze through a tiny canal into bright lights and people. In the second, you go from dealing with scrapes and bruises to broken hearts and bruised ego. I'm sure I was a pain for you in both instances. Please forgive me for the times when I was less than respectful to you. You deserve way better than you got from me many times. Most of all, thank you for being the primary influence in me knowing God and his son, Jesus. I witnessed your faith in how you lived your life. I saw God in you. And God's light shone brightly through you, Mom. Thank you for being his beacon in this dark world. You are his daughter and you represent him incredibly well. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you more than you could ever know or imagine. Love, Brian. Well, before that happened, my mom and dad loved to celebrate. So when they reached their 59th wedding anniversary, we had a big celebration. My parents owned a tavern in Toma for 30 years. And so they retired in 2004, but we had a massive celebration. This picture is taken, this is me and my family. The two people in yellow are my mom and my dad. They were married for 59 years. The two folks in brown out front there, that's my brother Brad and his wife Jenny. Brenda, my wife, and I are in the reddish color. The one just to the left of my mom is Brent. The tall redhead girl in the back, that's my sister Janine and her husband Ken holding up the peace sign, and my brother Blaine with the muscular pose there. So just a wonderful celebration. We took these, we met up at the Ridge. I grew up in that 2-story farmhouse in the background there, and it was just a wonderful celebration. But it wasn't long before cancer claimed my mom's life. And so on December 4th, 2017, my mom passed away. And I wondered if the letter had an impact on her. I knew she appreciated it when she read it, but I didn't know what happened to the letter. Well, after my mom passed, I found the letter framed and standing on her dresser. She likely looked at it every day. And knowing that makes me extremely happy. So this final key point for you today, please take the time to write a letter to the important people in your life while you still can. Describe their influence in your life. It may be one of the most important descriptions you will ever write in your life. In gratitude, write a letter to share your description of how that important person had a powerful influence in your life. Hey, Brian, don't forget to say thanks. There's a ton of people. When you put something like this together, it takes a lot of people, and all that information that I got from a lot of different sources. So I have to say thank you, but I want to set aside a few extra special thank yous. Today, I want to say thank you to my daughter, Sarah Jane. I have 3 boys and a girl. And to be honest with you, my little girl was our surprise baby. She popped into our lives, and I can't tell you how special and how important she is. Well, when Sarah grew up, she decided she was going to be an administrative professional. So she went to Western Technical College here in La Crosse, and all this animation and stuff that you saw me do with PowerPoint here is a product of my daughter's teaching. She taught me how to do all this fancy zippy zoomy stuff. And so I owe a lot to her. I want to say thanks to Brandon Bates from Monroe County Real Property Lister. I also want to thank my former employer, H.A. Simon Associates in Toma, the Wisconsin Land Title Association for their legal descriptions. I want to thank Sandy for being our moderator and speaking up and letting me know when people had questions. Thank you, Sandy. You're very much appreciated. And then finally, I have to say a big thank you to my wife, Brenda. You know, I told you that my land surveying career started on June 7th of 1976. 24 days later, I went to Sherry Cooper's birthday party. And I had a crush on Sherry. Turns out Sherry had a little sister named Brenda. I got to know that young lady that night, and we talked and we danced and we eventually kissed. And here we are 40 years later, 45 years later almost, and 40 years of marriage later. I'm bringing up Brenda to say thank you, because that poor girl has put up with me with a lot from me since July 1st of 1976. She's heard more stories about stones with crosses on them and bearing trees and fence lines and people fighting over land than she should have had to have tolerated. So I want to give a sincere thanks to my wife. And then finally, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that have waited so patiently through 2 hours and 35 minutes worth of, or 2 hours and 33 minutes worth of me talking. So thank you. I really appreciate your time. And with that, I would open it up. We've got time now. So if you've got questions, and it doesn't, hopefully it's legal description related, but if you have other things that you want to talk about, I'm here. I'm available to you. So please ask questions.
Well, thank you, Brian. That was great advice. We do have a question in the chat. Brian, how is the work going in determining the state line along the Mississippi River between Wisconsin and Minnesota?
Okay, I think that's a great question. Thank you for that. You also know that that's something that I'm passionate about, and that's very near and dear to my heart. For those of you that maybe aren't up to speed on this, you've asked yourself, where is the west line of the state of Wisconsin? Everybody knows it's the Mississippi River. The bigger question gets to be, where in the Mississippi River? The answer to that question is actually found in our legal description for the state line. Believe it or not, we're talking about legal descriptions. Wisconsin has a legal description, and that legal description is based on a description from May 29th of 1848, when Wisconsin became a state. And it talks about going, it starts, I'm trying to remember where it starts, but it works its way west to the St. Croix River, goes down the main channel of the St. Croix River to the main channel of the Mississippi River, then southerly along the main channel of the Mississippi River to the northern line of the state of Iowa. So there's actually a legal description of our state. Well, you and I both know that water boundaries have a tendency to change, especially when you have man-made influences make that change. And so when you put a lock and dam system in, the main channel as occurred in 1848 is way different than what it is today. And so the question is, we've begun some preliminary exploration to see what we can do to pin this line down. Interesting to note that the line itself, the state line was never surveyed. The original government surveyors came to the shoreline and stopped. And when they started in Minnesota, they started at the shoreline and went west. And so the main channel was never actually determined. So even though we do have some intermediate information, we've got flowage maps before the dams were built. So we got to get a sense of where it was, but that was well after the original government survey and well after 1848. So to answer your question, it's really ground to a halt right now, especially in the day and age of COVID. We really haven't done much with the state line. And I can share with you a little bit of a story. Sandy, do we have any other questions in the chat before I go rambling on here?
I don't see any more in the chat, but there might be, I think I heard somebody trying to ask one. Did somebody else have a question?
Okay, so I'll continue. And if you got a question, please do. I'll go as long as you guys want to. The reason that the whole state line issue came up for us here in La Crosse County was a twofold reason. Number one, we had a family that got too close to lock and dam number 7. It was a family from the Twin Cities, man and a woman and their 2 children. They got too close to lock and dam number 7, and their boat got sucked into the lock and dam system, and they perished. And so the question became, where do we file the death certificates? Nobody knew what state they were, the death certificates had to be filed in. Well, it turns out it was Wisconsin, but then back in 2013, another issue came to light. The I-90 bridge, which connects Wisconsin to Minnesota, was going to be replaced. And so we had talks about where is the state line in relation to that, because the prevailing wage rate had to do with the majority of the bridge. If the majority of the bridge was in Wisconsin, then the prevailing wage rate would have been Wisconsin rates. And if it was the majority of the bridge was in Minnesota, it would have been this Minnesota prevailing wage rates. And I could do another 3-hour presentation on the state line. We literally got into a pretty good tussle between us and Minnesota as to where the state line was. And what ended up happening is they came to an agreement and said, let's just split it down the middle. We got millions in federal aid coming in on this project, and we don't have time to wait. And so they kind of shook hands and agreed to it in the one place it could never have been, right through the middle of an island. So that's the answer. It's kind of the state line issue is at a standstill for right now. That's my best answer for you. Like I said, the last year has been a bit of a challenge with COVID. And, I know that a surveyor on the Minnesota side, trying to remember his name, I think it's Peter Marshall. He he works for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. He reached out to his higher ups seeking money to move forward with this process. And so it's kind of like launching a nuclear weapon. You both got to turn your keys at the same time, because this issue, in order to fix it properly, literally takes an act of Congress. You can't just go out and shake hands and say, yeah, this is it. I will say this though, rather than try and determine where that state line was back in 1848, what I'm advocating for is to go out and find out where the state line is now. And we have that information available. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they know where the shipping channels are. We could put this together pretty quickly. And what I would advocate for is more or less a boundary line agreement between Minnesota and Wisconsin, which would show, which you would get this line determined, come to an agreement on it. And I'm sure there's going to be places, don't get me wrong, I know there's going to be places where there's going to be argument that, well, this should have been here or that should have been there, but I think we can do this. and come to an agreement, shake hands, get legislatures on both sides of the Mississippi River to agree to it, send it to Congress for final approval. But I'm advocating for a boundary line agreement.
That's interesting. So there's a couple in the chat now. From Adam, going back to the government lots along rivers. Say I own, I think that means own a 20-acre government lot along a river. The legal description describes the river being the property boundary. A major flooding event cuts through my lot, leaving land on the other side of the river. Do I still own that land across the river? I'm going to say that would be a always yes, where no matter where the water comes or goes, it's how it was.
But I'm going to give you an answer that are my two least favorite words to hear. It depends. If it is in fact a sudden event like that, yes. If it's say it's an oxbow and it breaks through, you in fact continue to own that land. If it's a slow, gradual accretion and reliction where the embankment gets eroded away, the law says no, you don't. So it's kind of a touchy question, and you really have to, and of course, how do you prove it was a quick sudden movement, or it was something that happened over the years? So it gets into a legal hassle, and it can really cause problems. I gave you the example of government lot 5 just south of the La Crosse River. The La Crosse River changed dramatically out there, and nobody knows whether it changed. When it happened. We don't have aerial photography any farther back than 1938, but somewhere between the original government survey when they meandered it and where it is now, it was a massive difference. And there were 2 people that went after it and fought it out. And I'm of the opinion the wrong side won, but they lost like 30 acres of land because the river moved that much.
Okay.
So I hope I've answered the question.
Okay, the next one, I have many easements that need to be mapped. Some are recorded, some are not. Some are pretty old and take considerable time to translate into GIS. In my previous job out of state, we contracted with a group to translate and move these into GIS. Are you aware of anyone doing that in Wisconsin?
I am not. I'm sorry. What a great. If you like doing legal descriptions, that would be I think a fun job to kind of transcribe what those things say. But I'm sorry, I'm not aware of anyone that does that. I mean, I would imagine that you could reach out to a title company, but I'm not aware of a company or anybody that does work like that, at least in Wisconsin.
That's who we would always refer people in the Register of Deeds, refer people if a legal description needs to be written, then either the title company or call a surveyor.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
So is there any other questions out there? Lot of people said, thank you for sharing your beautiful letter to your mom, and I enjoyed the workshop. Actually, I do have a comment, I guess, or observation from surveys usually we see them on certified survey maps. In an example of, I gotta find my note here. Say the legal description is, sorry, I lost my note. The southwest quarter and the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter. And what I would want to see is the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter and the northwest of the southwest. But sometimes they combine that, they shortcut and say the southwest and northwest of the southwest. And that can be misconstrued. And in the Register of Deeds office, we've got non-map people that are looking at that, and it's often misconstrued.
And I can understand that goes back to the comma example. Spell it out and be specific about how you're spelling that out. That's, and again, it goes back to that whole diversity thing. who's writing the legal description?
Right.
So, yeah.
We don't want shortcuts.
Exactly. Yeah. It's well, and when you think about it, if you're, no matter what size parcel of land you're buying, there's a lot of money involved here. How about getting the verbiage right on the legal description? And better yet, how about knowing where it is on the ground? Get it surveyed. I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but that's so vitally important. If you're gonna, it's probably one of the biggest expenditures you're gonna have in your life. Pay the little bit extra to get it surveyed so you know what you're buying. Or if you're buying a piece of property, I'd give you this piece of advice. Negotiate into it, pay for half the survey. That way you and the seller are splitting the cost of the survey. And maybe you'll be blessed. Maybe it was a piece of property that's already been surveyed. And it's just a matter of going out and locating the irons. So for a couple $100, you got the irons located, verified that they're in the correct location. But if you're buying a piece of property, the vast majority of property in the state of Wisconsin is bought and sold without the benefit of a survey. We rely on old fence lines and hearsay and, well, I think it goes up to that tree and over to that power pole. Get it surveyed, know what you're buying. Because if there's a defect in the legal description, I'd like to know that up front so I can get taken care of.
Yeah,